Yeah. Yo, what up, everybody? Welcome to another bonus episode of the Comedians of Wrestling podcast. This is a podcast. This episode is a long time coming. I'm very excited to chat with this guy. But before Tullo's here, by the way. Before we introduce him, let's look Tullo because Tullo is the cow champion. He's awarded me the right to host this episode, even though he is the current cow champion, which means that the privileges come with that. I mean, it's the most prestigious title in all of wrestling podcasting, and Tullo, as much as we can be adversarial at times, I want to thank you for giving me the ability and the right and the privilege of kicking it off this week. You know?
Yeah. I couldn't be happier to hand this off to you, as just because you have the experience, you have done the hosting, right? And when you have guests on, I as a fan of the pod as well, you always do just such a spectacular job of guiding the conversation, leading the conversation, and getting the most out of it. So you know what? Why fuck that up? Let's just do it, baby.
Absolutely. Life rips. Now,
Life rips.
Tiptoe with Tullo here.
Yo, what up?
Remember this podcast, patreon.com/comedians of wrestling. Support the podcast. But that's just irrelevant right now. What's relevant right now is our guest here. This man, I mean, he has all kinds of accolades. He's being called by the voice of independent wrestling by Mr. Ron Funches, past guest on the show. He is the voice of GCW Game Changer Wrestling. But most importantly, and I think he would agree, he is a commentator on cow title matches. He the two of our biggest fights, a Mania match and SummerSlam. Two of the big four. He is the announcer, the cow commentator, Mr. Kevin Gil. Welcome to the fucking podcast. Finally.
What up, though, and what is truly good, though? It's an honor to be here, and yeah, I think you summed it up perfectly. To be kind of the cornerstone of the cow kind of super events annually, especially for the 2021 into 2022 season, it's been definitely the highlight of my career. And you know, just everywhere I go, people are mentioning specific things that I said on the call. You know, talking about the sorry, I was spacing on it on the spot. The Magic Killer. Of course.
Your Magic Killer was great. That was the best part for me. If you don't see it, the call, Kevin's call. Sorry to interrupt you, Kevin, but your call of Magic Killer at the Vegas show was just incredible. It was straight up like Japanese style, exactly how they'll call it in New Japan. You know, the elongated Magic Killer.
It was so great. Well, also, though, I'm just putting icing on the cake. You hit the move arguably better than Gallows and Anderson ever have, or really any wrestler, duo, trio, quadrangle ever.
Truly one of the best parts about our shows, and you've been involved in two of them now, and hopefully many more, Kevin, because I consider you a cornerstone of these shows at this point. But I would say is like the best part about the show, and I wish the audience could see it, is that like that show, Gallows stumbles in backstage like wasted, right? Like he's gone. You know what I mean? And like that's what the green room of these shows are. Truthfully, to be honest, I think the green room is better than the show.
Yeah, that's where the famous Jimmy Lloyd and John Morrison or Johnny Caballero or whatever photo
Johnny Nitro,
Johnny everything,
John
Johnny
Morrison.
Wrestling, so to speak.
Yeah.
Johnny Valkyrie.
Johnny Valkyrie, he's a very progressive guy. But so it's like Gallows stumbles in, and I say to Ziggler, I'm like, "Yo, we have a Magic Killer spot in this match. You think he'll like come up and like give Tullo Magic Killer?" First off, I don't even ask Tullo permission about this because this guy's literally 3 feet taller than us, right? So it's a way bigger drop.
I'm gonna go ask the 7-foot tall guy if he can give my partner a move.
Like that's how we run these shows. Like someone's gonna die on one of these shows, but just watching back the clip. I don't want to get too derailed, but I'm watching this. Tullo clip me with that spear so hard. Like I have no business taking spears like that. But just to focus this, so Gallows and I go to Ziggler, and I'm like, "Yo, do you mind if I ask Gallows to that spot?" And he pulls me to the side, and he's like, "You do not ask him to do anything on this show right now. He's absolutely gone and like it's not safe, and who knows if they'll even do it or show up or whatever. Like he's like, let them just hang out here. You know what I mean? And that's like, so
100%.
then he just hung out in the back. I think I maybe like forced him to give me a too sweet. and and that's it. So there's a chance that that magic killer. I love that our shows, and I'll throw it to you. I'm talking about. I guess I'm going into business for myself here, but I think Kevin, it's something that you appreciate because you're always excited about it. But it's like, it is the fact that there's a chance that that magic killer could have had Luke Gallows in it is what I love so much about what we do. You know?
Well, that's the magic of Cow and independent wrestling in general, is that literally anything could happen. And then Gallows being in the building is 50% of the equation. Do you know what I mean? At that point, and you guys putting on the event is the other 50%. So it's like all the pieces of the puzzle are there, and sometimes it all the planets align.
Well, because
I would go as far as to say as Gallows being there, and no one probably even knowing about it, but only us, made that spot even better. Because not only the call came on the second Magic Killer, we did two. Okay, we did two because the crowd demanded it, and Dolph refused to let us go on without giving them another.
The table
one.
didn't break.
Yeah,
Right. Like you got to do another.
Crowd's going one more time.
We do no training. We have no training. You know, it's like so fucking.
The only training we had for that spot was in on a hotel room, like 3 hours before the event, and they're giving me magic killers onto the bed. Is that you think that's good? I'm like, yeah, it's fine.
I can take that in, no problem.
Brad Attitude literally choking Tullo, choke slamming him onto like a bed in the fucking MGM.
My face, he lifted me up so high during that test, and my face touched the ceiling of the hotel room. Like, I was like, whoa! And then he just dropped me down.
That was crazy.
That's probably the one surface of the hotel room that hasn't had balls and asshole on it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
That's our first asshole reference on air. But yo, Kevin, all of this is to say, okay, that I think you and I had a moment at the collective this year where I felt a kinship with you, where I understood it. Like I was like, oh, because my background is I came from like UCB background doing like improv and sketch, and it was literally in the basement of a Gristides where literally we'd be performing on stage and like literal shit pipes would leak on us. Right? Like no one knew what it was. We kind of all just like turned a blind eye to the fact that like
the elephant in the room.
Yeah. You know what I mean? We all turned and like sometimes it wasn't just sometimes it'd be Amy Poehler getting shit leaked on her. Like she was a huge star, right? Like everyone in that space would turn a blind eye, you know? And we do shit dirty, and like that's how we kind of run the DZ show. And then like when you and I stood next to that collective sign, you just sent me that. And we're at the collective this year, and literally the sign for the collective, people fly thousands of, and maybe this is a question for Brett at some point, you know what I mean? But like, people fly thousands of miles to go there. Tullo didn't even have any WWE tickets or anything for WrestleMania. He was going exclusively for
the collective, and he already had his ticket package.
And you go
package. The ticket package purchase.
Yeah, and I'll post this picture of me and Kevin. It's like one piece of it's the collective. It's one piece of oak tag, right? This is the official sign for the GCW event. Okay, it's a piece of oak tag. Someone wrote in single letters, not block,
not bubbles,
not bubble. That's extra. That's double the work.
That's double the money, pal.
Arguably more than double, because there's sides. Anyway, whatever. Like a T requires not just an extra T, it requires the connecting lines as well. So there's more than double work. And the oak tag, it's duct taped onto the wall, right? With just duct tape, and it's written on the side
okay, sorry. Finish your thought. It's written on the side where the barcode is.
The barcode's on there. So they couldn't even write on the side where the barcode's on the other side. Or you figure
it's either that or they made the college try on the flip side and botched it. And then, but I prefer to think they started on the UPC side. But also it's the tape job. 3 sides even and then one long tail, like 8 inches. The tape goes like 8 inches below the sign. It's like a reverse letter P.
Bro, and like it's so crazy because my background in this stuff like is like we throw shows together and create magic. But like our show, like we had no sound. The show started at 6. The sound's not even up at 6. You know what I mean? And like people in my show are a little bit like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's fucking fine." Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, "This is how it goes." You know what I mean? Like you said, because that's there's a magic, there's a beauty in that because at the same time, and it is like when you go into the GCW event and it's just an open hall of people. Literally, by the way, I don't want to forget to say this. I know I'm going all over the place, but there were people in lawn chairs watching, which I thought was such a fucking funny. People to the GCW events that brought their own lawn chairs to an indoor warehouse event.
Yeah.
It was so fucking awesome.
Genius.
Yeah.
It is genius. I'll admit, I saw. I didn't see those chairs when they were occupied, but I did walk through the building and notice them unoccupied. And I thought to myself, man, those are some smart motherfuckers because even just doing commentary in a steel folding chair, I'd rather sit in almost anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'd love to have some sort of plush lawn chair or a gamer chair. Maybe that's in the future. We can arrange that. I can get a top money sponsorship from a gaming chair company, and they just ship a chair to each market, and I give this chair away at the end of the night.
That's not what I want. What I want is that you can get like, VIP. There's like front row seats. There's general admission. And then there's
chair,
like
BYOC.
Yeah, then there's fucking like like RV park. Like
right.
Like,
but of seating. Yeah, you get like the equivalent of laying your towel out at the beach. You get like that type of parking spot for you to put a lawn chair or a lawn chair and a cooler and a wagon, whatever you want.
You do it. It's like there's GCW general admission, there's GCW front row, and then there's GCW plot. You get a plot.
Only 16 plots available.
There's 16 plots.
Somehow we can run some power there and like give everybody their own little fucking outlet
charge your own
too.
And you can charge your own phone. Yeah, dude, that'd be premium shit.
Yeah. Now look, let me all to say, because it feels like, we're knocking the DIY of it all. But I'm not. Because what I'm saying is what's amazing is that you go in there and you're seeing highest level professional wrestling. Literally John Moxley. I was there with my girlfriend, Christina.
Yep.
And I say to Christina, she watches John Moxley. And I go, just to put this into context for you, Christina, the last time this guy wrestled at a WrestleMania, it was against Brock Lesnar. You know, the guy you've seen who's main eventing in the AT&T Stadium. And he's, you know what I mean? He's here bleeding out of his back. And people are fucking adoring it, And then you turn to your right and you see you on the commentator booth. You're so fucking keyed in. You're so focused. You know what I mean? It's like the operation there is I adore it. Like it's so great. I am roasting as a comedian. I roast to compliment. Like I think it is beautiful. If it didn't exist, Mania, it's almost to me, if Mania had none of that, it would suck. Mania weekend would just be like another good pay-per-view,
Sure. And not as much. Yeah. To me, the reason to travel gets increased much more. And plus, even with, WrestleMania until not that long ago was one night, now it's 2 nights and, SmackDown and the Raw after, which has always been, and now combining the Hall of Fame and whatever. But to me, what you get at the Collective really makes it worth a weekend. Because if you like wrestling and, a lot of people like the wrestling part of wrestling, believe it or not, they didn't come for the sports entertainment part of wrestling. They came for the wrestling. So the idea of getting to see the best talent from all over the world, ranging from Joey Janela's Spring Break to Bloodsport to For the Culture to Gay Brunch, Planet Death, the independent promotions that get to showcase and spotlight. There's literally something for everyone. And if you're into everything, like Tullo, you just get the ticket for everything and literally just get your set. Like that's your ticket. You're set for the whole weekend for less than what one maybe second raised level seat at one night of WrestleMania would cost.
100%. I mean, I actually thought this year was almost really interesting in a way where the WWE show was kind of not a wrestling show at all. Right?
It was crazy in that regard. Yeah, like think of how much there was unprecedented. There was almost like when you go back to WrestleMania 1 and 2, the amount of celebrities, It was that, except they were in the fucking matches this time.
Yeah. Like, and I was like, oh, this is perfect because I don't even need wrestling from WWE, which is
Right.
like, so I almost thought, right? Like, that's not
Yeah.
why I'm even watching it. So to be honest, I was like, this is after I watched some of the matches you're seeing at GCW at ROH. Plus, it's like we're snapping right back into AEW, you know, getting Samoa Joe, Suzuki, like right on the next Dynamite, or the Dynamite after, whatever. I almost like applauded WWE for this Mania. Like, to be honest, I don't mind. Let WWE become kind of just like a fun party act, a fun spectacle.
Well, fun is fun,
show.
and they seem to sometimes get away from the fun, and the continuity, believe it or not, leads to fun. You know, by just having things continue on and make sense. But like, I was offered tickets to both nights of WrestleMania, and I chose the Sunday night because Sami Zayn versus Johnny Knoxville. And there was one other one that was I was like, oh man, those are both going to be, I'm kind of real curious to see what they're going to do. If they would have advertised, or were in a position to advertise Austin versus Owens as a match, obviously I would have went to that. But knowing what I know now and having been to the show and whatever, I have no regrets. Like, I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun.
Exactly how I felt.
And plus, hey, was I enhanced by the fact that I walked in there with a ride to and from, free tickets, free food, free drinks, all that? Does that affect my opinion? I think so. But regardless, I was just like, I am having the best time ever. We're laughing sometimes, we're cheering sometimes, we're howling sometimes. You know, like it was just an experience. Like, I enjoyed it and it was fun. And the only time we were ever like whatever was like the almost match, which you knew exactly what we were going to get. And then the AJ Styles and Edge match, I don't know how it came off on TV, but in the building, it just seemed like a lot of double downs. We kept joking about it in the Skybox or whatever, but it just seemed like, man, this is the match of all double downs or whatever. And it probably came off good on TV, but it just seemed like a lot of laying down.
Yeah, it was. I mean, that match was the match. They have one of those every year now. They take
very methodical.
Yeah, they do one where it's the beginning of the story, but it's at Mania, you know? Right, and it like,
well, you described it perfectly, Dan. You said it was the match that they want you to believe that everybody wants to see this match happen. And it wasn't that, but
it's the match that we'll have. That's what I said. It's the match they think that we've been dying to see. They're like, this is the dream match you've been dying to see forever. And I'm like, that's a match I'll have. Like, that's cool. It's Edge, AJ. I never thought I'd see those guys wrestle. But never in no one's fantasy book is like, can you imagine if Edge and AJ went, like, those are two completely different types of talents. So, like, whatever. But yeah, like, so Kevin, like, my question, my thought to you is, and my thought that weekend, and I'm curious what your thoughts on this are, is like, I feel like we're so, the Romans and the Brocks, right? Like that type of talent, right? I guess like those are kind of the titans of professional wrestling, the pinnacle, are so far away, removed from the rest of the wrestling scene. Does that make sense? That I don't remember it really being like that when I was kind of a kid. I mean, I know Austin wasn't going to like indie shows, but he felt like in the same dimension of all these wrestlers. Now there's like different planes, right? Like it's like a multiverse of wrestling now.
Yes, a metaverse of
where
wrestling.
Like Roman Reigns whatever he is doesn't feel like a professional wrestler. Like and it's almost a negative to him for me. It's like I almost kind of write him off. I'm like, yeah, he's like more of like a star than like I can't even see him if he went to like a GCW. Like what would that even be? You know what I mean?
Oh man. But then again, you never know. Like literally last night I was watching, I'm sure you guys have seen it. It's that famous Hulk Hogan versus the Great Muta match from Japan.
The
one with the long ass ramp to the ring. And just seeing Hogan, that entire match, all Hogan does is stuff that you've legit never see him do in a regular match. He's doing like rolling arm bars and all sorts of crazy submissions. And in other words, you never know what. I don't know where Hulk Hogan even learned that shit because he never had to do it before.
No.
Yeah, it's so true.
But it's just one of those things where Roman has such, like you said, the star power thing. I think he's one of those guys that he can go anywhere and do anything in the same way, and even more so than say like Cody did. Like I was there when Cody debuted in PWG and for that match, and to me he was just a perfect fit. You know what I mean? Like even though when you're watching him as Stardust or with the clear face protector on, like you don't think of him as, man, this guy in Gorilla, get ready.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That is amazing because, like, yeah, that's a great point. Cody is such an important pro wrestler because of the fact that if we're going with this multiverse analogy, he's the guy who we've seen him in every single planet and every plane. Because, like, you're right. Like, I watched Cody at PWG when, like, the ring was broken. Were you at that one? Like,
that one, I just remember his debut. It was in the tournament, like in Bola.
Yeah, it was Bola. I was
and
there.
he threw his boot in the crowd.
Yeah,
threw his boots in the crowd at the end. And I remember too, I was backstage at that show because I was interviewing the Young Bucks and Matt Riddle for separate interviews.
Yeah.
Do I have an eye for talent or what? But
You do.
so I arrived at the building really early, like so early. I was like the first person at the building.
American Legion,
So,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Barely
So,
a building, by the way.
Right. A structure, if you will. And I was in the back and I was there before anybody. And then someone finally came and let me and someone else in the building. And there's like two of us just sitting in the locker room ish, waiting for other people to arrive. And the first person to arrive after us was Cody Rhodes in a suit, who then introduced himself to me and the other guy. And, you know, he knows we're not anybody. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that always made a good impression. They're like, man, this dude's wearing a fucking suit in this sweat box. You know what I'm saying?
Same. I did my first ever Cal Live show. I moved to LA and I did a show at the UCB. It was when, remember they had like 6 years in a row where WWE did SummerSlam in the Staples Center?
Yeah.
And so I think it was like the last year. So I did
You drove them out of town.
Yeah. They were like, yeah, this is, this guy can't be having this much fun. So then someone brought Cody to the show. Ziggler was performing on the show. Someone brought Cody, and Cody, he was sitting in the front row, and my friend did a Dusty impression, not knowing Cody was even there.
Oh, shit.
He did Dusty was alive at the time, but, he did a full thing, and Cody's there. Everyone's there. It's a midnight show at UCB, okay? Cody's there in a suit and like a duster jacket. You know what I mean? Like the full thing.
Everything but the actual cowboy hat. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then he gets up. He, like, when that impression happened, he gets up and because I was like, do you want to do something in the show? And then he was like, no, I'm here just to support Dolph. He gets up and then he starts giving a critique on the Dusty impression. He was like, oh, it was terrible, and here's why, and blah, blah, blah. And it was fucking great. And then after the show, he's talking to me forever at the bar. And he was Stardust at the time. And I remember, like, completely in my brain underestimating him. Like, I have to be dead honest. It was like,
sure.
It was like, oh, I'm talking to, like, oh, it's cool. This is Cody Rhodes, blah, blah, blah. He's Dusty's son. That's all I really thought of him. And to see where he's at now, where I'm at a Mania, losing my voice over him debuting.
And then think of the Mania debut, the Raw, the reception he received at Raw. I remember one of the most asked questions that people asked me, even people in and around the industry asked me, were like, oh, don't you think Cody's going to get booed in WWE? And I was like, not at all. And they're like, oh, I think they need to be worried and they need to do this and they need to do that. And I was like, I don't think they need to do any of that at all. Like,
no.
The unique situation within AEW and the audience response to Cody, I feel, is exactly that. It's a unique scenario. You know what I mean?
I being the mark that I am, KG, I would even go as far as to say that, like, I think that had a huge influence on why he wanted to go to WWE. I honestly think he was trying to get over in AEW and the crowd refused to. And I don't think that aligned with who he wanted to be. And I think, and they couldn't have done it better, WWE, by keeping him the way he was, keeping the song.
Yeah, I like that too.
I think it's just perfect. I think they just are nailing it, and it's perfect. I think it's so impactful to the future of professional wrestling and what it does for Cody Rhodes' career. I mean, we're talking about jumping from multiverse to multiverse.
Yes.
Now when he goes anywhere else, you went back to WWE when you said you wouldn't, and his career will last forever.
I think, though, his career from here continues to go up because while he's riding this giant wave of success in WWE and even like a further expanding of his brand, I think we're going to start seeing Cody on films and in TV shows again. That's only gonna, you know what I mean?
Make his tattoo bigger. It's only going to make his tattoo
Here's
bigger.
an exclusive. So now,
All
are
right.
we on the brink of the next Rock? Are we on the brink of the next person who can become so big as a character, as a force, as an actor? Could Cody Rhodes now transcend the sport of professional wrestling?
I think no. I think Cody is a pro wrestler and will do the highest of highs. Meaning, I believe that he will main event WrestleMania. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like that high, but I don't think he'll break through. But I have on record and said it 2 minutes ago. Underestimated Cody Rhodes before. You know what I mean?
True.
It's one of the things I just adore about pro wrestling. It's my and God, I'm sorry, I'm veering off, but like Logan Paul, I saw a quote from him, and a guy that impressed me at WrestleMania because he did it so much right.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
at the end of the day,
All of it.
right? He did really maybe all of it right, but the point is more, I saw him, it was a quote of him, and it was kind of going around. It was like him being like, wrestling's not fake, I'm sore, and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, I fuck up. Are we still doing that Piper shit? Like, it's like, you know what I mean? Like, he did that on Bill Maher. It's like, oh, is it real? Everyone knows that anytime you fall down, it hurts. People are not, they live on planet Earth. We know what gravity is, okay? Like, we understand that the fact that wrestling is fake doesn't matter, okay?
Right.
It's a scripted art form, like every other art you like. So this conversation of like, oh, it's fake, blah blah blah, it's so fucking base and pointless at this point. I absolutely hate it. My point is more the shit that I love about pro wrestling, the stuff that's hard to describe. When people say like, why do you like it? It's fake. Is more stuff about like when I underestimate someone or someone does something that gets over and a wrestler who I've completely dismissed becomes relevant for one move or a spontaneous moment becomes a whole catchphrase and trademark, and like, oh, how alive it is because it's live theater. Get these hands, Suplex City, Becky the Man moment, like Cody just going over to like Cody who was Stardust, going and joining Bullet Club and all that. Like that is the stuff that doesn't exist in anything.
Correct.
Anything. And
Correct.
explaining that to people is, I could care fucking
Like
less.
imagine back in the day, like an underneath actor quit his acting contract to join the Rat Pack.
Yeah.
And just like put into the top, whatever the top act of the time was. Yeah. Like,
but like
it's crazy what Cody's achieved. My question though is, I'm curious.
I'm caffeinated up, baby. I'm caffeinated up. That's what I do. I talk
right
over the
now.
guests. That's what I do, Kevin. It's because I love you, baby. It's because I love you.
This is Bounce caffeinated sparkling water.
Wow, a little bit of the bubbly.
Whoa.
Bubbly Bounce. I'm sorry, Bubbly Bounce. But yeah, I love it. It's only got half as much caffeine as Highball, which I prefer. But I was going to say,
a little bit of the bubbly.
You mentioned
that worked out perfectly.
You remember that?
He was like, I was going to say.
the Cody, the Dusty Rhodes impersonation. What do you think the current jury verdict is on Dusty Rhodes impersonations? Because I love Dusty Rhodes, and I think Dusty Rhodes impersonations celebrate the life and times of Dusty Rhodes. But I'll be honest, there's many times I've been on commentary or other places, and I wanted to say something as Dusty or do something as Dusty, and then I just think of Cody, and then I just don't. You know what I mean?
Because
that's the vibe Cody. I feel like that's the vibe Cody gives off, right? He doesn't care for the Dusty impressions.
I don't know. Like I don't have any data to back it up. It's just something I feel like, you know what I'm saying? Like I don't see him doing it or posting clips of people doing it or putting over this guy does it the best or nothing.
Very true.
He does. It's true. Any like Dusty isms are very sparse with him. Like he doesn't. He calls himself the American Nightmare, which is like the reverse of that. And even I think at Mania got so over when he was doing the punches and the elbow because he doesn't do that stuff.
Yeah.
He more leaned into the shitting on Stardust. You know what I mean? Like that. Like so you're right, and he doesn't ever, like Charlotte's walking around going like, "Woo!" Her whole she's a Ric Flair
with
impression,
the robe, everything.
Yeah. And he shows his dad as like his dad, and I think it's smart. He's like, "There's my dad," and he even calls him the American Dream. He doesn't even say, like you're right. He doesn't ever do it, but his lisp is the only like homage to his dad. They have this. They
And
both
that's
have it.
genetic or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, something they both share.
Yeah, like are lisps genetic? I actually was curious about.
Or
I
yeah,
was thinking that.
I thought about this once a long time ago, and with Cody and his dad, and I thought, is a lisp genetic, or are you listening to someone talk that's very influential to you when you're a child, and they have a lisp, and you develop it from listening to them? I have
Right,
no idea.
like an accent.
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
say also their accent from like being from they have that Georgia twang almost.
Dad
that
from
goes-
Texas, and
Yeah, or it goes with the lisp, and it's something completely different. So I think when you do a Dusty impression, you're doing a lisp impression, but like the way they do it was just because of how they also sounded.
Yeah.
and all
right,
that
a
stuff, too.
southern lisp with that affect and the timing, and
Yeah.
I could. My favorite Dusty promo ever is it's a promo he cut for an old Madison Square Garden house show appearance, and it's just him like in the empty seats, I guess, at Madison Square Garden, and it's all talking about how much he loves New York City, and then he pays it off by saying it's like the only, and this is like in the 70s in New York, but he's like, it's the only place where you could see a black hand and a white hand, like both of them in the same popcorn bucket, Daddy or Jack.
Oh my God, he is such.
And I just love that. That's like the most beautiful. I did it minus all the Dusty isms, but it's true and it's powerful and it speaks to wrestling forever. And that's an amazing thing to do in a local market promo for a one-off appearance at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, he had that like blue collar elegance, like that where he says something where he's a real person. Like
well, yeah, that's what
man,
he's dined or whatever with kings and queens, and then
Yeah.
he's like under the bridge with pork and beans with bums and shit. But think about it, in both of those, he learned so much that then in the middle where he resides, he's everything. You know what I mean?
Kevin, tell me about your relationship with pro wrestling. Like I've never really mainly what we do is normally what we do on this podcast, me and you. And one time we were on the phone and we marked out so hard, like we were talking about control your narrative. We went into all of it. By the way, which you'll appreciate. I was I was on a flight with a bunch of the control your narrative guys.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say you were in that confrontation room. You should do that. You should have went in the confrontation room with a mic and just done your 3 minutes on them. But anyway,
is it sad to say I would fit in with those guys? I don't know.
You know what? I kind of like this. It's nice here.
yo, these guys. I'll tell you something, man. These guys are really cool. And after talking to Austin Aries, I'm wondering, does the mask really reduce anything? Why are doctors wearing them? You know what? Why have they been successful in Japan for decades and decades and decades and decades? I don't know.
What a group of individuals all under one roof, huh? Talk about.
Well, the funny thing, I was thinking about them today, and I was like, so they're like, I don't know if this is true, but the branding of them seems to be like we all have aligned politics, but then we fight each other. Right, like you know what I mean. So, like,
right. We've all agreed.
It's like
we all following guidelines to dislike each other.
Yeah, isn't that the equivalent? If it was like Tucker Carlson wrestling like like Bill O'Reilly or whatever, like they wrestle, but then what do they just shake hands and agree and go to vote? Red.
As long as they don't use the moves, as long as they don't use the outlawed moves.
You can't really be a promotion. Then you're just a gang, right? You're not a professional. You're not a professional wrestling association. If you all are trying to get a message out, then it's like anyway.
Well, here's my thing, right? So at first, I thought what Control Your Narrative was going to be like a right wing or a Fox News or a OAN or whatever that thing is called, like a wrestling show for that network, so to speak, or that audience.
Yeah.
And they would maybe have a wrestler that's like, these masks are bullshit. And like they would actually do what the other companies don't do, which is deal with contemporary events, maybe even deal with controversial events while injecting that, whatever you want to call it, that right wing or super Republican set of values.
Oh, that's actually not a bad idea,
because no one does that. And I'm like, oh man, for content for one of those channels and a way to put propaganda out, if you're into that sort of thing. I'm not saying I'm into their politics or their propaganda, but as a idea, someone just looking at it, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And then they got, Braun Strowman and EC3 and whatever. But then the more it goes on, and then they're like, we have a TV deal, but then their TV deal is ProWrestling.tv. Which, to be fair, I don't know if that's really considered a TV deal. Just because
Right.
something has .tv at the end of it. Hey, Ma, I got a TV deal. No way. Who's it with? Comedy Central or HBO? No, it's with whatever. I'm on TV.tv. Like,
Yeah,
no,
right.
that's not a TV deal.
Right. And I actually, truthfully, to be honest, I don't know much of what they do. I saw, to be fair, I saw one clip of EC3.
To be? No, sorry.
To be
Okay.
or not to be. That's the question. What I'd say is that EC3 was saying something that he was very aggressive, though. He was talking about banning 3 moves. Did you see that?
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't mind that. That sounds like a cool idea. Like, whatever. I mean, it's hard
Yeah.
to. I don't. It to me as an artist, that always feels like a form of like censorship. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I'm like that, but I get that those moves are overutilized. Probably better for you to just not do them and get
Correct.
over your
And
own
make
way.
it. I don't think it's important enough to be in the first 7 sentences of anything or the
Right.
first,
My favorite part of this whole discussion is this is the recap of you guys marking out in text message over control your narrative.
Well, also to be honest, this was me
Like-
asking what Kevin's relationship is with pro wrestling.
Well, that's right.
And
I
it was
didn't
like,
even answer
by
that
the
part.
way, we had a. This is the layers of it. Then I said we had a conversation where we talked about control your narrative, and now we're doing that combo again.
Well, let me say this about just to summarize control your narrative. In other
Yeah.
words, I think their potential appeal to be this weird product that we discussed that I did not personally approve of, but I think it could actually work and find a television home is kind of a Republican leaning or whatever the right verbiage is, wrestling product, believe it or not, for that audience that's out there. And, you'll never go broke underestimating or targeting some of the dumbest people in America in some of the lowest educated states. With that said, what they are actually doing seemingly of like trying to run independent wrestling events as an indie company, like, I don't know. It depends. I don't know how well they're going to do with that, to be honest. And Braun Strowman was wildly popular in WWE. It seems like he's cooled off quite a bit, but obviously he could, you never know what he's going to do and deliver and how he's going to draw. But it seems like if you just have a little squad of guys, I don't know that squad is going to be like drawing 2,500, 1,500, 1,000 people to events multiple times a week. It's hard for me to foresee that myself at this time, but
I don't want to give them advice. But if they followed the format that Enjoy Wrestle does, where they do one event a month and they record it and then it's live,
Nice.
people could come and attend it live and then spread it
Yeah,
out,
slice it
have
out.
the time to edit and produce it, throw in like crazy fucking things and topics, and you can make it relevant. That's the only way that works. And people are just going to stop showing up because it's really not going to be all that entertaining. And I don't have no desire to see anybody in that company wrestle.
Like there's a giant taco festival in San Jose, California, like an hour away from me. And it's at the arena, like the Shark Tank where the San Jose Sharks play. And as an added attraction to the taco festival, they've added on a wrestling show. And it's not branded as a Control Your Narrative event last I saw, but it's basically, I guess it's EC3 versus Braun Strowman or Austin Aries versus Braun Strowman. Some combination of that is like an added attraction included with admission at the taco festival. And granted, if they're paying those guys guarantees or whatever, that's a great deal for the talent. But yeah, like it just doesn't seem like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like,
well, let's
Taco
not let
Festival,
control your narrative control our narrative. I mean, you know what I mean?
So to answer your question, I grew up in the wrestling city of New York City, in Queens specifically.
Let's go. What
and
part?
I came Whitestone, Queens, to be super
Yeah,
micro
you're like
specific.
You're an East New York guy who came to Cali. I love that.
Yeah.
I lived in Bayside for a short stint.
Really?
Yeah.
I have my better half is from Bayside, and we have Bayside on our horizon in this calendar year.
Okay.
We're trying to make our dramatic return. Finally,
I will return back.
Yeah, like just to deal with some family stuff and whatever. It seems easier to be there than to be here or be half here and half there all the time.
Yeah.
I know it seems insane for anyone to move to New York, but
no, I got
definitely the opposite direction.
Yeah, everyone's going opposite. But growing up there, like I got to, growing up in a town where, they would sell out or at least run Madison Square Garden every month, and there'd be a wrestling column in the newspaper, and you see the wrestling results in the newspaper, and every time you go to the newsstand, there'd be like a dozen or more wrestling magazines with bloody faces on the cover and all that shit. So you would just be aware of stuff, you know what I mean, without even watching it. Like it was a thing, like you knew of it. And then when I finally started watching it and then going to live events and stuff like that, yeah, I just became like a super fan, like everybody else. And then like in the early 90s, I just got tired of, got into those dark days of wrestling. And I still casually enjoyed it, but I was no longer like a religious, so to speak, viewer of all the events and everything like that.
You weren't a big Doink the Clown guy?
None of that shit. In hindsight, some of it is funny to me now.
Yeah.
But compared to what I came up on, and then once I came up on stuff like, Roddy Piper and Randy Savage and all that shit. Then I got to discover stuff like the UWF out of, Bill Watts UWF with Jim Ross calling it, and all this regional pro wrestling around the country, and getting to see all this, wrestling, and it which includes bloody wrestling and technical wrestling and high flying wrestling. I could give a fuck about a garbage man and a repo man. And I mean, dude, you had a big boss man, a fucking repo man. How many what low rent fucking creative? Yeah. How about you, pal? You know what I mean? So all that stuff to me was like, this is trash, So I got
even as a kid, I'll just say, just point out, like, even as a kid, because I never took to any of those wrestlers that were just based on professions.
Yeah, what the fuck is that?
I never, like, my favorite wrestlers. Well, I mean, my number one favorite wrestler of all time. I have no control of it. Is Ultimate
Duke the
Warrior.
Dumpster Drozy.
Is Duke? Yeah, is that I love.
How come he's not something
the Brooklyn
man?
Brawler.
Yeah, how come Brawler isn't the fighting man or whatever? Why did they break the man?
Well, it's funny because it's like I also loved Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Like,
yeah, he's fucking up because he's a smash mouth tough fucking guy.
Yeah, like I liked a lot of wrestlers that were like, but he had like I was really into the 2x4. Like as a kid, I was like, oh, he carries a 2x4. I was like, that's really cool. But that's not a job. That wasn't a job.
Correct. He was from Glens Falls, New York. That's it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He said ho.
But I never took to a wrestler who was like a garbage man or whatever. You know what I mean? It didn't even work for me as a kid.
I don't think I've ever stopped to think about the 2x4. Like why?
Bro, I'll show you
the 2x4
to hit people with.
It just is so crazy. Like in the
I'd love when he would throw it. When he would throw it like 150 feet up in the air and then catch it. That shit was dope too.
I might have a picture of Duggan holding the 2x4. I 100%. They're like right here.
I love that to this day when Jim Duggan appears at comic conventions and stuff, the local promoters will go to Home Depot or whatever and get 75 2x4s cut. And then they're there selling boards for him to sign. And people fucking sell them out every time. Like, because you're there at the table and you're like, oh my God, it's a 2x4. And it's pretty reasonably priced. Because like, what the fuck does a 2x4 cost? And now you just have a signed block of wood.
This was in 91.
Oh my God.
I took this picture with a camera in 91 in Nassau Coliseum.
Oh, wow.
Nassau Coliseum, because I was a Long Island kid. That was Dugan. He came out with the American flag.
The flag connected to the 2x4.
Yeah, and he had the flag on the 2x4. Yeah.
Look at this.
Wow,
Jake
you were way
Snake with
closer.
Snake.
Tullo had a lot more money than me. You could tell. I was last row.
I'm gonna tell you what it was, and we had a guy at the Coliseum. He was he was the head usher, and his son played baseball with my brother, and my dad was the coach. So anytime we went to shows at the Coliseum, hey, is so-and-so working? They'd be like, oh, hold on 1 second. Yeah. My mom and I, we would go to wrestling shows. The best one ever was they did like Disney on Ice. And we're like, hey, is it? He's like, yeah. He's like, all right, hold on. He brought us down. He took 2 folding chairs with him and he opened them up, and we were sitting in like the fucking penalty box of the of the Disney on Ice. So anytime we had these fucking, but yeah, I had amazing pictures too. I don't think I have one of Duggan. I got Warrior though.
Wow.
Yo,
I remember one show I did attend.
Warrior. See that I took this Warrior in the tombstone?
Damn, that's nice and clear too.
Yeah, because my dad's a photographer, so I think he was helping me, when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Coaching me. Yeah, what were you saying?
One match that I randomly went to, because sometimes even in those dark days of wrestling, I would, like one time me and my girl walked past Madison Square Garden and it was just up on the marquee, wrestling. And, what does it say on the marquee? Wrestling.
Yeah.
But I'm like, oh shit, like there's a WWF or WWE show tonight. oh, let's go. And then you just go in and you're like, oh, are there any tickets available? And they'd be like, oh, we have second row or whatever. And you're just like, oh. So then we went to it, and it was fun, but it was one of those shows that Ultimate Warrior made his surprise return for the 5th time or whatever.
Yeah.
But it was still great just hearing that dun, 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 and the whole building loses their shit. That was a good memory. It's funny how that works, like how Ultimate Warrior. Yeah.
Bro, I got all this stuff on cue. Whatever you got, I got it on cue. Probably not.
I was gonna say, like, Ultimate Warrior, who in hindsight, he's not a good wrestler, and he wasn't a good person for at least a good portion of his life. Maybe by the end he was.
Yeah.
But that's all stuff we know now. Like at the time, like, yeah, dude, I loved him from when he used to be billed from Queens, New York, the Dingo Warrior.
Yeah, the Dingo.
And I'm a kid watching World Class Championship Wrestling. So right away, I'm like, did they say from Queens? And then it's this guy with face paint on, and he's just looks like someone inflated him with an air hose. But then he's the Dingo Warrior. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, and then I'm trying to understand what is the connection with Dingo and Queens. And I always was fascinated. Like, is he even from Queens? Why would that be where he was from?
No, I have no idea. I also,
and if your name is Hellwig, don't you want to run with that? That's a crazy fucking name.
I didn't even see any of his stuff where he tagged with Sting.
Oh, as the Blade Runners.
See, I didn't know shit about that. Like growing up, I didn't even really learn about that till I saw an interview with Sting where he was talking about how jealous he was of Warrior main eventing WrestleMania.
Really?
Yeah, there's a clip of him just being like it killed him.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Sting's technically the better wrestler.
And Sting was just like, and he was like, this. I watched this guy. He probably was like, I watched this guy like wrong himself to the top, right? Like be an asshole, like like bad behavior rewarded. And he's like, Sting's like this like good Christian man who is like more technically sound, not in better shape, but at least probably more naturally in good shape,
and pretty famous for showing up.
Yeah.
I can't name one public Sting contract dispute.
I know, but it's bad behavior is just rewarded in life.
Amen. Failing up.
Yeah, failing up is the term I was looking for. I don't know what I said before, but wrestling is the best example of that. I think it teaches me such a lesson. But there's times where I'm like, man, if I could just act like an asshole here, maybe it'll benefit me. But then I can't do it because I'm just not inherently.
Yeah,
like I might be an asshole. I'm not like saying, "Oh, I'm so great," but I'm saying I'm not an asshole like those guys who have no regard for anything.
I've had things happen on commentary where the other commentator is about to step on something so colossally that it would make the show a little bit worse if it happened, but it would make them look like horrible shit, and it wouldn't make me look bad at all. But I always am like, oh shit, let me stop this person from doing this because to protect the show, where a lot of people I think would be like, oh, let this person fuck this up colossally. And then, hey, that's one less person gunning for my job or this and this and that. But I'm just like, I don't want to, you know what I mean? It's one thing. If something just happens and I don't know about it, that's one thing. But to literally have that knowledge and then be like, it's like Spider-Man, you know what I mean? When Peter Parker let that criminal run by after his wrestling match.
Yeah, great power
comes great responsibility.
But that's also, I mean, that is one of those iconic moments, right? Where he's like, what the fuck? I gained nothing from helping this guy, and this guy was an asshole to me. So why would I help him out? And then you're punished for You're punished for balancing the scales of justice.
Yeah, he didn't go the extra yard to stop a crime, but he did nothing wrong. You know what I mean? And he's a humble one of the boys. He's a worker. You know what I mean?
You just brought something that's so great, and I want to focus on this because it's storytelling, right? Like it's what's missing from a lot of professional wrestling now. It is that extra layer is what makes Spider-Man so viable, right? Is because you understand him, right? There's a reason you understand like where he's coming from. It's the same as Batman, where you're like his parents died because he couldn't stop that crime. But Spider-Man's even better because he's not a kid, right? So when
and Spider-Man's a regular person. Like Spider-Man isn't, I grew up a zillionaire, but then my parents were murdered after a theatrical event. Like that's not normal either. Like Spider-Man, what happened to Uncle Ben, of course, a tragedy.
Yeah.
But regardless, Spider-Man's like a normal
Rest in
person.
But the fact
He's
that
a-
he could have stopped it, it's going to be like when it's the same thing as like when I have an audition that I want to skip or something. This is so much less lower stakes, but it's realer. And you're like, that's the one I might book, right? Like that's the
Correct.
big one I might book. And you're like,
Yep.
well, it's like every crime he doesn't attend to is the one that affects his life, right? It's like
Yeah.
the one that leads to the whole city coming down. It's the one that leads to an atrocity happening that sets off a chain of events.
And
That-
the thing about it that I've never thought about before that you brought up there was the idea that he didn't stop the crime, but he didn't stop the crime to help the promoter that tried to fuck him over. Like that's like a double
For
or
Bonesaw.
triple whammy. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
he said you have to last 3 minutes with Bonesaw, right?
And he
It's like
did.
you-
He lasted 3 minutes.
He's like, you knocked him out after 60 seconds. So, like, he prorates it. I think that's what he does, right?
that's fucked up, man. Spider-Man earned that money, and that promoter is fucking over the boys. We can't have that shit.
Crazy how Macho Man ties to this, what we're just talking about randomly.
Yep.
But, like, in terms of storytelling, I think GCW tells some, like, they tell some awesome
I was just
stories.
about to
Yeah.
interrupt and transition the conversation that way into saying that, like, I think from being a fan of GCW and watching it like over the time, but now more thoroughly enjoying being a fan, going to shows. I just watched the entire weekend from California, which was just like, God damn. I mean, talk about keeping the momentum going after the collective. You had a culmination of every single show that happened there come together, just continue on in LA. And I think what GCW doing is so unique because you guys are just like, you're not telling it weekly on TV. There's dedicated events in dedicated places with dedicated titles, and in between all of it are these little stories that are happening, but a lot of it has to revolve around the wrestling aspect of it. Like, you kicked my ass, I'm not going to let you get away with that kind of thing. And I think the best one going right now, and I was just absolutely, I mean, if y'all keep doing this kind of shit, was this Effie and Jeff Jarrett promo that you guys put out, which is like, man, talk about perfection. That's becoming a must watch match more and more by the day. And it then shows up on TV and you see Effie starting the show off. He's saying he's going to call out Jeff Jarrett, and obviously he's not there, but wrestles this young up and coming star.
And finally, he gets to wrestle someone under 50.
Yeah, right. and it's just like it's perfect storytelling. And then Effie cuts a promo after, and it's just like, but like, I think that's the beauty of it. There's all this talent from so many different places coming into GCW, and when they're not wrestling there, when they come back, it just picks up right. It like the story's still going in some kind of way.
But
and it's really,
yeah. No, well, Tullo, I was commenting.
it's just really unique, and it's. I think it's pretty dope that like you get to announce all that.
Well, it's part of GCW, like because I don't know how the creatives run in GCW, but is that part of what GCW's strategy is to have hook people more with stories? Because I always complain about indie wrestling. I've said this before. My complaint is that it's always like, oh, these are two great talents. They wrestle, then they shake hands. And you're like, right?
That's like Ring of Honor kind of thing.
And it always makes me uninterested because it's not that I'm uninterested. It's just like how many it ends up being like I've seen that a million times.
Yeah.
Two great workers work. You know,
I would ban the handshake after the match before I would ban a tope suicida, a super kick, or a Canadian destroyer.
Yeah,
agree.
So in terms of like this, like that's a great call, is because it's pro wrestling. I think I always say this. I guess the performer in me is like the amount of times where something. I think of the MMA fighter Chael Sonnen, who when he basically talked his way into a fight with Anderson Silva. Do you remember that? And like he won this match, and then Joe Rogan puts the mic in his face, and he doesn't do any shit that's like, he doesn't go like, thank you for this opportunity, anything, and he goes, the mic goes, first words out of his mouth is, Anderson Silva, you absolutely suck. After he beat another guy, he doesn't even mention the guy who's laying on the ground. You know what I'm saying?
Angle.
And you're like, that happens in indie wrestling almost like never. It's like, it's all like we had a great bout and there's a lot of respect. And I want to remove some of the respect, put the respect in the back. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Amen.
Yeah.
That's
Put the respect
GCW.
on the name, put the respect in the back, anywhere but the endless in-ring handshake. I agree with that shit for sure. And what I think the difference between GCW and a lot of companies or some companies is like the way you guys were describing the way the stories play out, and they play out at these premium live events, if you will, or as they're called, pay-per-views. These pay-per-views on Fight, everything plays out. That's the product. You know what I mean? It's so many people I think like are obsessed. If you have a deal with TNT or the USA Network or any of those channels, by all means, you're getting paid tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars. Collect that money and do your television storylines. If you're not getting paid actual money to air, I mean money to be on TV, you don't get the benefit of AEW and WWE get the benefit of being on television.
Right.
And there's other companies that just have the burden of being on television, meaning they can't just run a kick-ass live event because it's like, what about the television? But it's like, what about the fucking live event where the people pay money? What if you gave them an incredible live event and then you eat, and that's the show, or whatever, or you cut that up and make it into something else for other purposes. That's fine. But I think so many people get hamstrung by either the burden of a very small micro television arrangement, or even just caught up in that mind state of like this story, rather than deliver kick-ass fucking events and tell the stories through those to the best of your ability. I think GCW proves it makes so much more sense.
Why? Like, I'll put it to you this way. It's like, why is Matt Cardona the best independent wrestler?
Right. Well,
that's something wrong with independent. It's something wrong with independent wrestling that I don't think is that hard of a fix either, because there's so much great talent out there.
Sure.
It's like, why?
The stuff he does well, though, are things that a lot of other people don't do. And you'll notice some of the people that Matt Cardona rubs up against, so to speak, the Effies, the Nick Gages, even Chris Dickinson, they have their own full brand already. All of those people, and Cardona does too. But you know, so many people in wrestling don't go all the way Cardona does. They don't bet on themselves. They don't commit to it. Cardona, love him or hate him, he does his shtick, or his shtick is him, however you want to look at it. It's 24 hours a day. It's 360.
Yeah.
And that's good business in a way. And he's created his own platform. So like he's his own platform with his podcast and his video streams and the doll collecting shit, the doll washing, and they apparently these guys get together and they bathe with the dolls, but we'll talk about that another time. But the point is, though, he's his own platform too. So when you're NWA, when you're Impact, when you're any independent, having him on your show, you get this signal boost, so to speak. And you know, sometimes these doll people come out, you know, they want to buy stuff or be involved in live events, and Cardona delivers. So I part of it, I think, is just it's the brand and the perception. And every day he increases his own perception and his own brand, like literally with each passing day.
I think what GCW does better than pretty much any of the companies is the in-ring storytelling that goes
Thank
on.
you.
I think that makes your job a lot easier too, is because it's easy to pick up on. Like, it's very, very simple. Like, I mean, I'm watching Effie and Alley Catch wrestle the night after they went to war with the Briscoes, and they're both wrestling two up-and-coming superstars. Like, this makes sense. It's like all of it just makes a lot of sense. And the stories that are being told in the ring are just so easy to follow. Like, if you watched Effie and Suzuki and going into that match, knowing how much criticism there was of that match.
But criticism from who?
Right. Well, what I'm saying is
No,
like, if you know, like, there's that criticism going
Sure.
in, and then you are in the building watching that go down. You're witnessing magic, like legit in-ring storytelling magic. This is a 53-year-old murder grandpa versus, you know, the greatest gay man in the world,
35-year-old
like, pretty much
murder, gay uncle.
Exactly.
Uncle.
And Effie does his thing. Suzuki does his
Effie's
thing.
great.
And it's like a love story in this like beautiful.
It's fabulous.
Yeah, but
Weird
Tullo,
about
your
war.
point is to speak to Kevin's point, which is and I know this as a primarily live performer. The focus is on the live show and the people in the house. It's a
Yeah.
big problem with you. It goes macro. It's a societal problem. Is that back in the day you cared about being the coolest guy in your neighborhood. Now you're trying to be the coolest guy in the world on social media. Right? Like, you know what I mean? Like these. So it all kind of speaks to all that, right? Where it is now it's about the people who bought a ticket. That seems to be gone. You know, I know that for me, like Vegas, when we did the Vegas show for Cal, you know, my focus is on the people there, you know, and everyone was like, are you streaming it? Are you doing all this? Are you doing that? And I was like, my brain doesn't even go there. I'm like, oh no.
That's why I'm here.
Right. I'm like, not at all. Cause I mean, it's a flaw of mine as well, but also is that I like to connect with people, you know, that's why this pandemic was really hard on only me. Okay. And not everybody
of course.
else. No.
But think about it though. But by just making a kick-ass event, if you make an event that rocks 788 people in Las Vegas or whatever, and you record it, the tape of 800 people being rocked translates exponentially to audiences of one and more watching at home or whatever. And same as Cow, same as GCW. But if you imagine if the Comedians of Wrestling and/or Dolph Ziggler and Friends events, imagine if instead of just letting that hour to 90 minutes to 2 hours flow with the fun and the vibes that it does. Imagine if every 90 seconds you guys were stopping to be like, all right, we got our next segment. Hold on, we got to roll this commercial. Let's stop the action. Like,
we wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah, the show would be so fucking flat and stale that on tape, it would, even when you cut it together, it would just look like shit because the audience is completely taken out of the moment. You know what I mean?
I think what I noticed about GCW, and it's kind of dope because I've had, like, knowing you and then also knowing a lot of people there, a lot of the wrestlers now too, I kind of get like an inside look at it. And I think it's really funny because we joke about it, but like Jimmy Lloyd was at our Cow event and he was just there. I don't think he said a single fucking word. We were feeding him Trulies. And I listened to Effie's podcast and I listened
wait, before I'm sorry. Are you talking about Jimmy Lloyd being at this year's Cow event or the Las Vegas one?
The Las Vegas one.
If I could just add one quick note to that story, what I love about that is, yes, Jimmy was there. Jimmy did not speak to anyone there. I mean, he might have said a word to me, but none of the people whose event it was. Yeah. And then at the end of the night, I forget who it was. Someone said, everyone in the show, let's take a group picture. And this big cast of like 15 people or whatever, we all get in the picture. I'm standing there being like, man, this is so cool. Like Dolph Ziggler and the Comedians of Wrestling. What a moment. I get the picture back and there's two immediate things. One, I'm trying to be considerate and I was wearing a mask backstage. I'm the only idiot in the group photo wearing a mask. So like I'm barely in the photo as it is. But then two, Jimmy Lloyd, who did nothing, who said nothing, he's also in the photo.
Just his
you know what I mean?
In like the most Jimmy Lloyd face of all time. Just dead
like,
stare.
He doesn't want to be there.
He's looking into the camera and be like, what the fuck do you want? Say something, motherfucker. Like,
what's going on, guys? What's that?
So my point about Jimmy Lloyd is I listened to Effie's podcast and he talks about what a great person Jimmy is and the mind that Jimmy has for professional wrestling and how you see it. So what I realized that exists in GCW and I would imagine is how it is that there are an insane amount of talented minds in GCW and they're all under one roof. And I feel like Brett is kind of like almost like the puppet master. He just lets the things happen and then kind of throws it into place and figures out how to book it all and build it all. And I don't think that's, I mean, you probably, that's what people think happened in AEW, but I don't think that's the case. But in GCW, you have all these insanely talented people like just running the show. And it's, I mean, I heard X-Pac say he would take a bullet for everybody in the back. I mean, this is a guy.
Yeah.
Okay. That was in the NWO and DX. All right.
This is a guy who might take a bullet. So,
and I kind of get those vibes like from everybody there. Like everybody's here to fucking lift each other up. And I think it's kind of cool to see young cats like Nick Wayne come along and just stack L's, but wrestle all the best wrestlers in the, like all the main people. So like, he's so over and he's not winning.
Of experience, right? Get decades of experience in a super condensed time frame. And that's on top of the world-class training he got from his dad. You know, his dad, Buddy Wayne, also trained Darby Allin. But on the flip side, he did train Brian Alvarez from the Wrestling Observer. So, you know,
And,
Yeah.
Buddy Wayne giveth, Buddy Wayne taketh away.
it's so dope to see now guys like Cardona and Moxley and other wrestlers want to get involved in GCW now. And I think people know that that's how you can get over. And I love the core that says, well, you're not just going to come in here and just get our
Phone
fucking
it in.
get our heat. Like we fucking do shit the right way around here. And the diversity, the exclusivity, like, I mean, I know a ton of people who like fans that all it takes now is just to go to one GCW show and you're pretty much hooked. Like women, like children, like it's I would say it's definitely come a long way. I think earlier times when I was gone to GCW shows, I wasn't all that thrilled about them, but now it's like you can go to GCW show and you're right there. Like I got a fucking Moxley's 3 inches away from me, man. Like you don't get that anywhere else.
Right.
Why
And
want the
yeah,
pass?
It's crazy because I mean, like, I came up in LA and watching the PWG show, my friends are not talking about PWG here. They're talking about when GCW's in town. You know,
Fuck
Right.
yeah.
at the Ukrainian Cultural Center, right, literally down the street from me. It's crazy. And you know, like that's a big fucking deal. You know, that this company.
and seeing like you said, the way people, like, I used to be blown away how you know, when I would go to Gorilla, you know, it would always be sold out, and it would be, you'd have to like finagle to get a ticket at a certain time, and then there'd be all these celebrities there. Like I went to Gorilla one time, and me and my girl went, and literally seated directly in front of us was Mike Patton and Adam Jones, the guitar player from Tool. And they're just
Hell
sitting
yeah.
directly. It's Mike Patton from fucking Faith No More and Mr. Bungle and all that shit. And I'm just like, oh my God. Like, you know, I've already met like sorry, I can't think of their name now. The MMA girls that all went to WWE, like they would always be at Gorilla, and like I met
like,
them, and they,
Shayna Baszler, Marina Shafir, like all that.
yeah, they were all mad cool. And I love that celebrities would come. And to me, that was the bleeding edge of wrestling, and people respected the art of it. And it became just a hot ticket. Like you got to see this show, you know?
Well, to pull it all together too, that's kind of like your backstage is kind of like our backstage in the green room, right?
Yeah.
I think we're just all there. We are there to have a good time. We're there to make the show better. It's really, really great vibes back there because we're all just like kind of lifting each other up and figuring out the way to make the show go the best. You know, like no matter how much fucked up shit goes on, intentional or not intentional, but it's just
right.
like,
And then you get also shit like Flight. Like we had a show on Sunday, and like Bandito didn't get on his flight.
Yeah.
And Biff Busick had flight issues, and Jacob Fatu had flight issues. And then like there was all these headlines like GCW show plagued by travel issues. And that's, I mean, appreciate the headlines. Any, you know, put out the word on GCW,
Heat's
but
heat, baby, heat's heat.
But to me, it's so weird, like the idea that it's so notable as news. Well, I guess it's a two-edged sword or whatever. That on one hand, it's so notable as news that an independent show had some travel logistics with a few of the performers that it became news, or is it that GCW is so newsworthy that even a minor incident that occurs on independent wrestling shows around the country on a weekly basis gets clicks, so it becomes a story? You know what I mean? And I don't know the answer to that, but it's just interesting.
I would say you guys are just in such a fortunate position because I think one of the best matches I saw the whole entire weekend at the Collective was Jordan Oliver versus fucking Speedball Mike, and that happened because PCO was out. And I think that what that shows is like just how sick GCW's roster is that match wasn't even planned and it went off and it was fucking insane. Like
one thing to build on that
go.
too. Effie told this to me after the show, was that after the show on Sunday, both Effie's matches, the one on Saturday and the one on Sunday, the matches did not exist in any form an hour before the matches started. And by that, I mean, when they wrestled the Briscoes the other night in LA, the Briscoes didn't show up until, because of flight issues. The Briscoes didn't show up until like minutes before the match, like, you know, handful of minutes before the match started. Mm-hmm. So there was no ideas, no anything an hour before it started.
It's crazy.
And
I love
And then
that.
the Nick
bro.
Wayne
That
match.
match was so
That's my
fucking
life.
sick.
I love that shit. I love it.
And the idea that what was going to happen with Nick Wayne and all that all was decided about 30 minutes before the match. So in both those cases, Effie and his opponents, partners, etc., all made magic. You know what I mean? With out of nothing and with no time and with not what they
Sick,
planned to
man.
do and with who and all that.
That's
really
what I connect
enjoyable.
with the art form. It's same as like what we do in improv. And Kevin, you got to come to one of my improv shows down in L.A. Next
Oh,
time,
fuck yeah.
you know,
And if I may, we
yeah.
talked about background. If I may blow your mind, sir, you may not realize there is not just one graduate of the Upright Citizens Brigade improv training and theater on this Zoom call right now.
Oh,
they're
Tullo,
actually...
I didn't know you were training. I didn't know you were training. Wait, Kevin, you took classes and shit?
KG took classes at the UCB Theater in New York City.
Way too much sense.
Oh,
now.
Shit. When? Like when I was...
this is back when I worked at Rockstar Games. So this is like in the very late 90s, like 99, maybe even 2000. It could have been 2000 or 2001.
At like 22nd Street? When they were in like the 22nd Street Theater?
I believe it was that. I believe it was that one. Yeah.
Wow, because I didn't show up till 07. Like,
okay.
yeah. Like, I was they were already at 26 and 8th in the Chelsea basement.
Okay, yeah, I was not in the basement of the Griseldes or whatever you said.
Gristedes, yeah. Did you train with any people who went on to be like big improvisers?
I have to look at my my materials again, but I'm pretty sure Matt Walsh was one of my teachers. We had like two. I believe Matt Walsh was one.
Matt Walsh is the commissioner of COW. I don't know if you know that.
Really?
The commissioner of the COW title belt is Matt Walsh. He's
that I didn't
one
know.
who put... Yeah, well, you know, he put Shabiro, he made Shabiro defend the title in Vegas. There's a video. Check out my Instagram. He didn't want to. It's supposed to be me versus Tullo as a number one contender match. And then Walsh, he wasn't having it, and he put out an ultimatum.
Wow.
We used to do the COW. We used to do, man, the pod before you were around. You know, this interesting thing is like, and like it speaks to what you're saying about GCW, like throwing stuff together. It's like UCB started a podcast studio when they bought the building on Sunset, and they had a podcast studio and a podcast employee who was a Nosh and this guy Ziegler, not Dolph Ziggler, this guy Cody Ziegler. And they were like, Dan, you want to bring your podcast in here? Because I was doing it myself. And then they just gave me the studio and just let me like just do whatever the fuck I want. I was like, so then I would just be like, yo, Walsh, you want to come in? I'm like, all right, Walsh, you're the commissioner, you know? You're the And I spray painted that title in the back of UCB. Like that's where I did it in the back there. And I would have matches. One thing in the Del Close Marathon is I wrestled Iffy, my buddy Iffy. Like I had a wrestling match. And then there's an improv marathon. And then literally, I'll send you the link to it. But we just did a wrestling match.
All this you can see on our YouTube page. I know this is going to be a bonus episode for the patrons, and they probably already seen all of it. But KG, you should check out You can go through there's like an actual cow title like category, and you can go through the history of it, and it's really delightful to watch. Yeah, for sure.
Well, but that's the thing is that like, so it's like I tell awesome stories with the cow title, you know, in the limited capacity we have. I'm not like, I'm going into business for myself, you know, but I feel like in wrestling, when I look at guys who are so talented at wrestling, and I'm like, but they don't put any focus on the storytelling. Like, look at a guy like a Ricochet, right? Who is like as talented as it gets when it comes to professional wrestling. He's truly a dud of a pro wrestler in reality. Like, it sounds shitty to say, you know, and he's moving the needle so much less than people who have so much less talent than he is, because he's never chosen for a single second to focus on storytelling and character, you know?
Sure. I mean,
am I picking on him?
So
I am.
His ring work. I mean, his work in Gorilla and in Lucha Underground and everywhere he went was just so great.
Like the Prince Puma shit. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I could see in a way where, granted, it's an important statement of why you need to be well-rounded as a performer.
Well, I talked about how great I am, by the way. So I am, and then I should have Ricochet.
He's a pro wrestler. He's not
a sports entertainer.
Yeah, he's not a sports entertainer. He needs to be wrestling Nick Wayne's, the fucking top flight guys. He needs to be in an environment that caters to how he wrestles. I think what's unique about GCW too is that you can get those kind of wrestlers against guys like Effie and against guys like Chris Dickinson, and it's completely different styles, but they're still able to tell a story. You know, that doesn't exist in WWE. They're trying to tell a completely different story.
Can you imagine Joey Janela versus Ricochet? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
No, the match
Grim
would be.
Reaper versus
Let me be
Ricochet.
clear. The match would be a 10 out of 10. Like,
Oh, fuck
don't
yeah.
even get me right. Ricochet. No one blew my mind more than Ricochet. But I cannot believe the how little I give a shit about Ricochet
yeah, well,
in WWE.
But
And that's partially his
I don't
fault.
blame
You
Rick.
can-
I don't, but barely. I mean,
He's the IC. Oh man, but he is the IC. I know, Kevin, but he's the IC champ. Like I'm saying, like he has
The
social
IC
media
champ-
at his
the I-
disposal.
the
He could do
IC champ.
something.
the IC champ in
Yeah.
a time when the IC belt doesn't even merit a match on WrestleMania, right?
correct.
Over 2
No.
nights.
Well,
There
he,
you go.
but yeah, but he had
There's your
defended it on the. He would in
On the pre-show?
WrestleMania SmackDown. On WrestleMania SmackDown, you see on WrestleMania SmackDown.
So not WrestleMania Raw or WrestleMania
Yo,
Backlash.
I totally am a like. I am a understanding of booking. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But I listen. Man, whatever. This is gonna be a whole. question.
Let me ask KG a question.
Yeah.
KG, and to speak on like a topic. Now, I wish Newman was here to kind of talk on it, but after calling the match with you in Vegas, Newman was like, "God damn, like KG is such a professional." He's like, "I've never called a match before,
Dude,
but
he's so
I never
talented.
felt." I was like, I never felt so at home, like, and understanding what I was supposed to do. Like, if he was about to say something, he'd put his hand on my shoulder and tell me to stop. And I think it's just so awesome to have you involved. And now knowing that you have this improv background, I feel like what we do is so like right even more up your alley, and why it's all so great. Like, we handed you the script of the match like right before we went on too, so you only had really footnotes and what was going to happen. You kind of
Sure.
knew, but I think having that improv background meshed with Newman so well, meshed with the vibe of the show, and that's why we love having you involved so much. But like,
I think Kevin's the best commentator I've seen, like in recent history.
And it's so cool. It's like,
and I'm not shocked that you have that improv background. You know, I think that's
all.
what Tullo's saying. Like,
It makes
that doesn't
so
surprise
much
me at
sense
all
now.
because of how much you were able to roll with that match. And everybody after Vegas was like, "Who was that guy?" Because a lot of them are not marks. You know, they don't know
Right.
wrestling the way we do. And how you made it all like come alive. And I remember a small
Made it-
moment where
I
you're like,
remember-
"Is the fix in?" I remember that you were like on the turn. There was
What
moments
the
where I'm like on stage, you're like, "Wow, you're fucking." Perfectly highlighting what we're doing,
yeah.
GCW so
I just
lucky
remember-
to have you, bro.
Oh man,
I hope they
please
know
tell
it.
that to tweet Brett Lauderdale. What was I going to say though?
Brett's also lucky to have DZ and friends. Okay,
Of course.
no, he's great.
But wait,
Brett's
what was
the
I
man.
going to say about that? I just remember knowing that like a basic layout of the match, and I don't know if it was you or Nick who told me, but someone just said like, make it feel important, or like we want it to feel important. It was just some.
Me, I said it because it's like I always say that to everybody because I say like I know what we do is goofy, but it's important for it to feel serious and important.
Gravitas.
You know, it's like there's goof, but the title matters a lot. And to be honest, I was gonna make a post about this. It really does. It is true, like the MacGuffin of it all, right? There's all like the Tesseract or whatever. It's like that title means a lot to us. It's like this piece of plastic that, like, every time I'm holding it, you feel something, and like that's also a thing about pro wrestling people don't understand. But I do have a question for you. Do a Tullo's thing. Is like because it's like how do you when you prepare to commentate? How much do they tell you about a match? And you tell me what you want, where you can go.
Yeah.
How much do you know before to prepare, and how much is just rolling with it? And then what do you prefer? Do you prefer to roll with it? Do you prefer to know?
Sure. Well, I mean, Brett is a master of hiding stuff, meaning like when Matt Cardona debuted, or when Ricky Shane
didn't know?
Page debuted, or Matt Cardona, I knew was coming. And that was one where low key, like I actually met him before the show,
Yeah.
which normally doesn't happen. And normally I wouldn't even admit to that. But literally every other surprise we've ever had, including Jeff Jarrett, it would just be in the moment. I find I remember when John Wayne Murdoch attacked Alex Colon, I had to wait, like, and I'm watching the fucking monitor as the person fully reveals themselves because I need to actually see who it is so I can say who it is. So I'm not stalling or pretending or.
That's so sick. I fucking love that. Brett reminds me a lot of Dan because Dan keeps everything about the show in the dark until like the last
Yeah,
Dave,
Cardona-
I gotta talk to Brett more. I think we were very similar in that way.
Cardona was kept.
That's where my brain's going.
Cardona was brought into the building in that druid outfit and put into a locked room, and no one went in or out of the room. None of the other druids knew that he was there. Like the fact that I met him before the match, like I said, was like a rare occurrence that happened. But outside of me and Brett and I think one other person, we were the only people that knew that he was there. But every
That's
other
insane.
time, I have no idea what's going to happen on these big moments and angles at all in any way. With regular matches and events, I love to just know whenever possible. I love to just speak to the guys in the match for a few minutes just to understand. Sometimes guys literally are like, KG, fucking do your thing, man. There's some people who've literally never once given me a note or a, hey, could you mention that I recently did this? Just nothing. And I'm not knocking them. That's what I respect.
Well, they also trust you because they know like you're gonna
sure.
about all
They're
that stuff.
happy with what's there.
Right.
And
Yes,
there's been times where, like, if it's someone that I rip on or whatever. I remember one time, like, I thought of this really good line in the moment about someone's parents like not accepting them or claiming them as a kid, like the reverse of you not claiming your kid, or not the reverse, but you know what I'm saying. An adult not being unclaimed by his parents. But then in the moment before I said it, I was like, I don't want to, because you never know what people's personal situations are. And like, I don't want to just go out of pocket talking about this person's family. And then I went up to the person after and I was like, I was going to say this thing. Say whatever. I'm like, but it was a little bit, bro, you can say anything. And then I'm like, well, it was about your parents, like your mom and dad. It's good. The more say terrible things about them. I love it. So I was like, okay. So in that case, I knew. But generally, I guess in a perfect world, I like to talk to people just for a minute or two, just to know if there's anything that they feel is really important about the match, or if there's is there like a moment, like is there a thing that this match, because some matches are all about there's going to be this one thing, and other matches are just like this is going to just be a dope match that happens. And some of the best matches I've ever called, like I've literally known absolutely nothing of anything. I don't know what the finish is. I don't know who's going over. But on the flip side, some of the best matches I've ever called, I knew the general layout of the match and a few key points. You know what I mean? Like I've done shows, like more shows than I could count, with no note of any kind, like a blank piece of paper in front of me that says the name of the event and the hashtag on it. And then as each match comes out, I'll write each person that's in the match just so their name is right in front of me and I just don't lose it in the moment, because sometimes you just need that ground to be like Alex Cologne, But yeah, so I guess in a perfect world, like a little bit of both. Like if I don't need to know, I don't want to know as far as big moments. And then like, who's winning and if someone's leaving the company or this is so-and-so's last match, if it's meant to be dramatically revealed, I prefer that it be dramatically revealed. I prefer not to know, but I do like to know. It can make moments better when people smarten me up to just certain subtleties that need to be enhanced or just things to put over. And to close it out, that thought is like, some people might just be like, it's important to stress like that I'm from here and this is my heritage or whatever of this ancestry. And it's like, you got it. Some people are like, my height, like put over my height. Yeah. And it's like, you got it. And then some people are like, when I do this thing, it's like really devastating. So like extra, like, oh my God, you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's weird how you can get a full array of different things and other people will just say, if I hit this move, it's important because this, and you're like, oh, great. And then that's so easy to weave in and make everything mean more. But it's interesting because you'll get everything from just put over where I'm from to this little spotlight on this motion makes this all feel bigger. That's like a pretty diverse range right there of what you might get. You know what I mean? And then there's some people you get nothing from. The first GCW show that I called the entire show
was going to ask when did that happen?
So I had done
and even how.
I started my first show ever with them was Spring Break, the original Joey Janela Spring Break. So they had like a rotating cast of commentators, and I got to call. I was actually the first person that contacted them about being part of it. Like literally, they announced it. Like I saw the press release go out, and then I was just like, "Yo, like
I think I had some friends who were in that rotation as well.
Yeah, I
Maybe
know.
again, Saint Germain, I think jumped in.
Yeah, and I think Excalibur.
Yeah.
Drew Cordero. It was like a diverse mix of people.
Damn.
So I hit them up. I was already a fan of Joey Janela. I was more of a fan of Joey Janela than Game Changer Wrestling. I knew about GCW, but Joey's stuff I would watch. So I hit Joey up. That lets me getting a shot at Spring Break 1. And then I came back at Spring Break 2. And then I came back at Spring Break 3. And then it was after Spring Break 3 that I started doing more stuff,
right,
like more regularly. But the show, and I'll always remember this, DJZ was his name then. Now I always forget. I'm sorry. What's his name in NXT? Joaquin Wilde.
Yeah.
So it all comes down to Joaquin Wilde helped me tremendously, and I thanked them for this publicly before. But here we go again. So I know I'm doing commentary at the show in LA, right? And that's all I know. And that's what I knew the day before the show. It's what I knew the day of the show. It's what I knew 8 hours before the show, 4 hours before the show, 1 hour before the show. The whole time I'm just there. Right. I'm visible. I'm near the gorilla position, just waiting to find out like what matches am I calling? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's literally 1 minute to airtime. And I'm standing at Gorilla. I don't know what matches I'm calling. And DJZ comes up to Brett at Gorilla because DJZ is fighting Great Sasuke in match 1. And DJZ just goes to Brett, "Hey, Brett, who's calling match 1? And Brett's like, "I'm not sure." And DJZ's like, "Can KG call it? It's my match," or whatever. So Brett's like, "Yeah." So I'm like, "All right, cool." And I'm like, "Holy fuck, I get to call a Great Sasuke." And no knock on DJZ. I'm a fan of his as well. But it's like, holy shit. So Brett's like, he just turns and looks at me and he's like, "Here's the deal. We're going to rotate you in. We're going to rotate you out. Right. Other people will come out and join you. We add, we take away, just whatever." So I go out there and I'm like, blah, blah, blah. I'm Kevin Gil. I'll be one of we have a great cast of characters coming through. We're in a rotation. Boom, boom, boom. They never fucking sent anybody out. So I just called the entire show by my fucking self. Sean from the Hot Tub came out and joined me for one match. And the main event was David Arquette versus Nick Gage.
Oh, shit. That match?
It was legendary and no feedback. Like, in other words, more of this, less of this, this okay. I'm just in a vacuum, you know what I mean? Going off on the mic.
Wow.
Oh my God.
I had Arquette I asked about that match because I had Arquette on the pod.
Dude.
Wow. I didn't realize you called that.
Yeah, man. And it was weird because that was a match in advance, out of respect to David Arquette and out of respect to the unique spectacle, I did have 8 bullet points about David Arquette, where normally I don't have bullet points for each person.
Whoa,
right,
man.
But
I manifested this happening, dude. It's so crazy.
And I was putting over these key things about him and why this is so. Basically, I knew they were fucking making a movie. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to me, as a smart person looking at it, I understand what a story arc is. This is going to be a pivotal fucking scene in the movie because he's already done all these other matches. This death match is probably the crescendo of the fucking film. You know what I mean? So the whole time I'm trying to put him and Nick and everyone, but I'm putting over his journey, his struggle, his conflict with his legacy, all this.
Yeah.
Because I also wanted to be my voice, at least, to be in the documentary. And I felt like I was doing so good at commentary. His camera guys kept coming by and shooting me doing the commentary. So I'm like, fuck yeah. So then the movie comes out and I'm watching it and they're using the commentary drops from all his matches leading up to it. But then when they get to LA, they didn't use any of my voice at all. So I was kind of like, privately bummed. Like, oh man.
Yeah, but that's because they were focused more on the injury.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm like, all right, whatever. I was just personally disappointed just because I was like, oh, I felt like this was going to happen and who knows what could happen from that. But then Vice goes and makes Dark Side of the Ring and features heavily that match in the Nick Gage thing. and they use the fuck out of my voice. The final thing you hear in the episode, I think like the screen goes black and I yell out one more thing or something, and that's the end of the episode. And I'm like, yo, this is so dope. And it made me just feel validated. Like you said, for maybe it was for story arc reasons or whatever, it wasn't appropriate to use my stuff, but I felt like I had some really good lines in there that would have fit in good in his movie. But
no, I'm sure
the
it's
fact that
edited
Vice,
incorrectly.
Yeah, it was edited incorrectly, and that's why it didn't win any awards.
Because they didn't include you. No, but that's fascinating, man. But I mean, what I hear when you talk about
Thank you for sharing
like,
that. That was awesome.
That's real.
there's a selflessness to commentary because, and it's again part of the beauty of professional wrestling is that similar to the ref, similar to the crowd, similar to the commentators, that you're all part of the actual show, right?
Yeah.
You're all, including the crowd, we're all part of the theater of essentially pretending that this is an actual bout, right?
And the more real it is to you in the crowd and on the commentary and whatever, the performer, you've seen the stuff that these men and women can do.
Yeah.
When the crowd is lit, it's superhuman. Not the viral performer, but the state of mind.
Like I could veer off a bajillion ways.
Veer?
I could veer Mahan.
He says veer at least 2 times an episode.
But I'll say this, is that I could veer Mahan to the Edge and Christian of this episode, but is that Kevin, like, there's a selflessness to the way you commentate that is necessary in pro wrestling, where you're like understanding this is not about my character. This is about me getting over these guys and gals in the ring and the stories they're trying to tell and the characters that they're trying to sell. And I think that is kind of amazing. Whereas, like, I know that if I was doing commentary, you know, I'd probably be a little bit more like Pat McAfee. Which, by the way, I think there is room for it. But I'm saying the way that there is room for it, and he does sell as well.
Yeah.
When like Shinsuke's coming down the ramp and he's up there, like that is selling. There is an element of that, even though he's making himself a spectacle. But I'm so into what's happening. But I think the way that you do it is truly like the way that it needs to be done. And it's a testament to you. And I think that's fucking amazing. You know.
Well, thank you, man.
I love hearing your process. You know.
I love doing it, and I love putting people over. Like, I love talking about what I like. Like, who does it? Who doesn't like talking about what they like? And I think so many people have lost touch with the magic, like whether it's technology or whatever is taking it away. People have lost touch with the magic of just excitement, of just putting stuff over. Yeah. Like, remember like getting an album and putting it on and being like, I love this shit. Or seeing a movie and being like, this is fucking great. As opposed to, this is great, but the introduction of this character in the second act was a bit weak. Like, I don't know, you know what I mean? Maybe it's because I've got to work on a lot of different things in gaming and wrestling and music and all this stuff where it's like, sometimes my opinion or criticism or feedback or direction is needed. Sometimes it's warranted. Sometimes it's asked for. Sometimes I'm paid for it. But guess what? Just as many times, it's not needed. It's not necessary. And nor does it add anything. And I'm someone who has experience in the game, so to speak. Like, so many people lose sight of just, it's okay to enjoy something. And I just love being in that moment where I'm literally getting paid to watch my favorite, hands down, wrestling product, see all my favorite wrestlers that I'm also then somehow friends with, and speak truthfully, but with awe or venom about what the fuck it is that they're doing.
Right.
Like, and getting the feedback like this from you guys and feedback I've gotten from other people and fans and everything. It like someone wrote, I saw this on Twitter when I was flying home from the collective. Someone wrote that they went and watched Spring Break on pay-per-view with their mom in the UK.
Yeah.
And the mom had never watched GCW before. And at the end of the Spring Break pay-per-view, the mom said, this Kevin Gil bloke is the best commentator I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And I've been watching wrestling for 47 years or whatever. He's better than Jim Ross. And it's like, but the idea, what's crazy about that is, to me, like, if you listen to haters or cynics or whatever, I'm horrible at commentary and nobody likes it and whatever. And I'm not saying that I think I'm better than Jim Ross or whatever, who is a legend. But the idea that an older wrestling fan could say, I think this is literally the best and I've heard it all. And I can meet younger fans and men and women and people of all, like, I just like that they're what people that don't like it, that's their right. But the people that find it excites them. And if I had $1 for every time that someone told me that they watch wrestling at home, and then someone in their household has been in the periphery of them watching wrestling for years and never, ever, 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 ever sat down once with them to watch it while it's on. But then they would, when they're watching GCW, they keep coming into the room and being like, well, I have to, well, they hear what I'm yelling about. And then they're like, I have to see this, or they'll pop. Did that guy just say that? And then they sit down for a minute. Like, I'm just going to watch this match. And I've met people like that. Then they'll come to the show and tell me the story or variants of it, where the commentary got a family member to join in the fun, or drew back in a lapsed fan, or things of that nature. So I think a lot of people get lost. They lose sight and they get caught up in the criticism loop where it's okay just to enjoy something. Or it's like, I don't like olives or whatever, but I don't really have to spend a minute of the day explaining that I don't like olives. I don't have to post graphics about olives. I don't have to spend any time. Like, the fact that I've talked about olives right now, too much.
It was a bit, I'll be honest, it was a little too much. That turned me off. A little too much olive talk. I think
fucking olives, man.
You bring up such a great point on this episode, and we went a while, but we'll bring you back. But and I hope to have you back often on all the stuff that we do.
Please.
But I think that the thing that came out of this conversation for me that's really interesting is about enjoying the show and the moment, and serving the show and the moment. And I think that it's interesting. I know that I'm making this about me, but it's interesting because, like, sometimes my like my girlfriend has said to me before, she's been like, why are you not excited about that? Or why are you not like this and that? And because I honestly want I honestly want everybody else to have like an awesome fucking time. Like, especially if it's my thing. You know, like I remember, I mean, this is a big example of it. It's like, you know, I had a wedding. I'm not married anymore, but I had a wedding. And like, I remember it was hard for me to enjoy it.
You're not married again yet.
Yeah, not married again yet. But it was hard for me to enjoy my wedding because it was like so many people there for me, and I want to make sure they have a good time. You know what I mean? And I want to make sure that their experience was good. But then there is that awesome moment where you're like, okay, I put this thing on, and then someone comes to me and like, I had the best time. A lot of times, you know, Tullo's really good at being like, that was such a fucking awesome time. And that lets me know I had a good time, you know? And I think that it's easy at the same time. So I enjoy hearing that feedback, but I'm trying to focus on feeling that like myself. And then at the same time, I'm trying not to be like the show, the moments are the thing. And so there's this fallout after where it's like, well, now I got to post about it. Then you post something from an amazing moment and people just like hit like or skip it or don't write anything. And then you're like, wait, what? This thing was amazing. Like,
yeah, my favorite is when I actually commit and write like this big, like this whole, like, what a journey and yada, 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 this whole fucking heart wrenching or heart, you know, tear inducing saga of joy. And then at the end, I'll be like 3 likes, 0 shares. And it's like, what if I wrote, man, that Batman movie sucked or whatever? I mean, my Facebook blows up.
And like, right. That's an amazing point, right? If you like talk about the Will Smith slap, you'll get more responses than talking about something that was actually
and I'm so happy
to you.
That as of this recording, as of this moment, I sent a total of 0 tweets, texts, Facebook messages, public posts, Instagrams, or stories regarding Chris Rock and Will Smith. Just none. I was able to and I recommend people can just do that more when something
I
really. I
cannot tell you how many times I go to type something because I instantly get like, don't realize it. And they go, this isn't worth my time getting involved.
Yeah. And I just move away. Like, I have an opinion on it. Of course, who doesn't have an opinion on most anything? But exactly.
Well, actually, to be honest, it's the true opposite. What happened there, it is the true opposite of what we're talking about. Yeah. Like, as Will Smith is a spectator, right, making it about himself, even though the comments about himself, he's not supporting the person who's actually performing it on stage.
Right.
Amen. So I think like that's this. But Kevin, the point I was making about all this was direct to you, because on both the Vegas show and this show, the level of gratefulness you have on being on the show and the amount of fun you have on being on our show, which to be honest is small, even though we have some big people on our show. We have Ziggler and we have big like stars on it. It's a smaller show compared to the microcosm that is the collective and these GCW events.
Sure.
And like and you're so happy to be on it. It's fucking infectious. So you've had that effect on me of making me enjoy it 20 times more. Like when I was extra Vegas, I would we were texting and you were just like, man, that was the best time. Like I had the best time. And you're like,
it was so fun.
Yeah. So I mean,
you guys,
to
be honest though, it not blowing smoke or saying this
Yeah.
just to whatever, but from as soon as I got to the building in Vegas, you guys have like a fun energy. Like you're not sitting around being like, oh fuck this, where's the fucking, and everyone can fall victim to that sort of grouchiness or nerves or whatever. But you guys are all just, there's still laughs, even if there's stress or as stuff's just coming together, there's like a fun vibe. And Ziggler's there cutting the sleeves off t-shirts, of course. Your wrestler 101.
I gotta get him a new ref shirt every time.
Every time, right?
Sleeve.
So we can cut the
sleeves off.
sleeves off.
The sleeves off? So like, stop asking, bro. Just cut the sleeves off. We know you don't wear sleeves. No one's ever seen you in sleeves.
You're right. Yeah, exactly. They're just all over the floor backstage. It looked like discarded do-rags.
He hasn't worn sleeves since the Spirit Squad. I mean, like,
but you guys have a fun energy, and I love the. I didn't know what to expect at the first event, obviously, because it was my first one. But I love the whole thing. But the comedy part of it was the pleasant surprise first, because that was rolled out first, and it was so fucking hilarious, and it was way different than I expected it to be. Because the last thing I expected in the world was like Dolph Ziggler ripping on the audience and telling jokes at his own expense at the same time.
Yeah.
That's a fine line to walk, and it's hilarious on several levels because he can pop, his dressing room or the backstage at a DZ and Friends is quite fun, but he can pop the curtain in the dressing room as well as he can pop the audience. Sometimes on, one joke is for the audience, one joke is for the back, whatever, but the comedy was so hilarious, like act after act, and seeing and I apologize, I'm bad with names. Who was the ring announcer at the Las Vegas one?
Jason
Oh no, at Las Vegas.
Kayla Braxton.
Sorry, Kayla Braxton at Las Vegas. My bad. Kayla Braxton, like stunningly beautiful, great ring announcer. Her comedy set was like a C. I know people get caught up and enamored with her looks or whatever, but to me, for a first-time person going on a stage and doing comedy, she was like, she could do it professionally, in my opinion, just based on how strong she was in that 5-minute or 3-minute bit that she did.
It's so funny because, like, man, I know we're trying to wrap up, but dude, I could talk to you forever.
We're not gonna.
But it's so funny because every time I do these shows, there's always like wrestling talent and wrestling. I love going into the wrestling world because I have no ego. I don't get. Listen, like this sounds like cocky or whatever, but like I've said this before. I acted in a scene with like Johnny Depp. Okay, like I come from fucking the Hollywood world, which I'll play as a heel in my shit or whatever. Blah blah blah. So like I'm not like even though with like. So when I know how to hang around these wrestlers, because I'm not like whatever. Even if I'm like, oh wow, you're my favorite, like blah blah blah,
sure,
whatever. And also,
how to hang out, right?
Old at this point, but the funny thing is like wrestlers are so fucking different than Hollywood actors. They're so guarded. They're so guarded. They have walls, and every time I break down a walls of a wrestler, it normally comes from them seeing me perform.
Yeah,
so
sure.
Like, then they come up to me and they're like, "All right, you got some chops. Like you got talent. You're cool." And so like I remember I did a set. Becky Lynch was in the audience, and then she saw me do a set and I did very well. And then backstage she came up to me like, "Great set." And then I talked to her, but before the show, I was like, I know not to approach these wrestlers. They got to see me.
Right.
I was in the back with Kayla, who's super nice. But I remember I was talking to her, and she was a little bit like, all right, nice. She's a little bit like, she's nervous for her set. Then I performed, and after I performed, she comes up to me and is like, yo, I got to go up, like blah blah blah. And I love seeing the walls of wrestlers come down to us comedy folks and what we do, because it's a tough fucking business. You got to watch your fucking back. You got to protect yourself.
And it gives them a nice way to segue into a new opportunity, whether it's for the night or down the line. You know what I mean? Like similar to how Undertaker seemed to be auditioning for a role on some sort of a weird inspirational speaking television or touring television program during his Hall of Fame speech. Kayla Braxton could easily have a career in comedy or anything else that she wants, should she ever grow tired of her current duties.
Oh, man. KG, before we head out, I posted in the Discord for our patrons to ask some questions, and there were 2 questions. So maybe if you can answer them quickly, it'll be a nice little gift back to the patrons that asked. Philip Hollingsworth asked, biggest influence on your commentary style? Any influence outside of wrestling that informs your style?
Well, I mean, inside of wrestling, I'm very influenced by like Joey Styles and old Jim Ross, so to speak, the classic JR. I love his stuff in the UWF. And of course, Gorilla Monsoon and Jesse Ventura and Bobby Heenan. And of course, some people laugh at this one, but I put him up there with the greats, man. Vince McMahon on commentary is a delight.
Vince McMahon on anything, except for being a human
except
being.
on Stone Cold shoulders.
No. Yeah. I would argue he takes the best stunners. That heightening of 20 years later, finding a way to botch it worse. You know what I mean? It's one of the greatest works of all time.
I just fully realized this. So I was at the first stunner Vince McMahon ever took. His first bump in WWE was at Madison Square Garden at I believe it was a Monday Night Raw, and I was fucking there.
Holy shit!
And then I most definitely saw the last Stone Cold stunner that Vince has ever taken. So
me too.
I was
at Raw 25. I saw Vince take the stunner at Raw 25 when he stunned Shane and stunned Vince also.
Oh my God, Vince bouncing. He turned a stunner into an Irish whip setup.
And then outside of wrestling influences, I think for commentary, I think it's just like the spirit of punk rock and hardcore music.
You just called the match with Lars this weekend, right?
Little bit of hip hop. Yeah. Me and Lars Fredrickson, we did 2 or 3.
Lars Sullivan.
No, Lars Fredrickson. Lars Fredrickson is better than Lars Sullivan.
You and Lars Sullivan, tell me about your relationship.
We don't have
time.
We started out just sharing a screen, but then it turned into these private Snapchats where, he promised he would delete them.
Oh, yeah.
He started by liking all of my photographs, hundreds and thousands of photographs at a time.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Oh, no, sorry. What's the second question?
Yeah. Let's go. Let's veer away from Lars Sullivan.
I was gonna say
he's gonna like this post.
Shout out to Lars, not Sullivan,
Fredrickson.
Just man, it was really cool to hear him commentate with you. Like that guy loves professional wrestling. I mean, like just marking out for the wrestlers and knowing what's going on. It's cool to see, and also to see what he's brought to GCW too, with using one of his songs as the promo for the show. Like. It's just like that's such a dope. I can't imagine what that experience was like just for even you, just like sitting down next to this like music legend, and you're like, oh,
that's amazing
with this guy.
But what's funny, a lot of people don't know this is so for me, it was like I was reuniting with Lars on commentary because the first time I ever called wrestling with a commentary partner, I had done it one time by myself solo. And then I did it one time with Lars. We called the show together in the early 2000s or in the late 2000s of the first decade of the 2000s, like 2009, we called a show together. And that show that we called together is what got me my commentary job with Insane Clown Posse and Juggalo Championship Wrestling and that stuff.
Oh shit.
And then from that, obviously that ultimately I ended up in Game Changer Wrestling as a commentator. And so basically though, it all started with, I did this DVD with Lars and then ICP saw it and hired me off as I was already a referee for them, but they saw that and were like instantly whoop, 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 like put away your ref shirt. You're good now. And so again, and for me, it was great because being on commentary barely hurts my knees. So
yeah,
a lot less, dropping. And
so you used to ref.
I refed for a bunch of years and I got to ref with so many great. I refed matches for Roddy Piper, Hall and Nash, Tito Santana, and I'm just scratching the surface. Like I could go on and on and on and on and on and on. Like Gangrel, Todd Bridges.
Oh wow,
Todd Bridges. Yeah, just I could go on and on. But I got to referee for so many people that I was a fan of and that I admired. And
Obviously helps in the commentary game as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, and just knowing what's
dope.
up and knowing, you just learn. I learned valuable lessons as a referee that I took with me to commentary, even just in terms of, I always remember at one of the first events I was refereeing, Samu, who is one of the third Wild Samoan, along with Afa and Sika. He was running a women's event at the same place that my event was at. So I'm a green ref, you know what I mean? So I ref the show I was on, and then I was watching one of his shows. I'm just watching at Gorilla, and suddenly something happened. I don't know if a fan ran in the ring, something happened, and he just turned to me and was like, "Ref, go out there and do this." And I'm just sitting there. I don't have my ref shit on anymore because I'm not reffing. You know what I mean? So I was like, and then I just got another ref real quick, and the ref ran out and fixed it. And Samu was like, "Brother, that's why you have your shit." You know what I mean? Like, just have it on. You know what I mean? Because if it's go time, it's go time. And I'm like, all right, I got you. And then
it's like Spider-Man.
But then he was like, but then this. Then he told me, come back tonight or tomorrow, whatever it is. I'll have you ref on my show. I appreciate that you're here, that you're here watching the matches and everything. I'm like, oh, thank you so much. So he had someone who worked with him, this ref, who was like kind of like his helper, who was helping him run the shows and stuff. So later on that night, I run into the ref, and the ref's like, "Oh, hey, I talked to Samu, and he says we're all good on refs. We have one too many, so we don't need you." And I'm like, "Oh, no way." And he's like, "Yeah, I just want to let you know so you don't have to bring your stuff, nothing." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So then the next day, I cruise by like when the show's in progress because I'm not on it. So I just show up, and I think I watched it from the audience, but then Samu saw me and he came over and he's like, "You just no show to booking?" And I'm like, "No, sir. Like your man, you know what I'm saying, homie over here told me that no ref was needed." He's like, "Brother, I asked you to come to the show. If I tell you you're not needed, then you're not needed." And that was such a valuable lesson, because here's this guy who I don't even know, but I met him. He's smiling to my face. He seems like a normal person. That dude went out of his way to fuck up an opportunity for me, a young green ref, who was getting a great chance to work for the Samoan family. You know what I mean? So I learned two super valuable lessons.
Trust nobody and listen to the main guy.
Well, I think that's why I was saying that the wrestlers are so interesting. They're so I find that the wrestlers that I interact with, they're very on edge. They're always sus in that business. There's people in there who ruin it for everyone else.
It's important to keep them out. And if they're a social media thing, don't empower them. Like, so many people think quote tweeting someone is a way to bury them, but you're only, in a way, no matter what you put in the quote tweet, you're still putting them over, you're still bringing eyes to them, and you're still giving them the attention and the oxygen that they need. Like, you know what I'm saying? Just don't do it.
No, anyone who's a wrestling fan knows, like, heat is heat, attention's attention, right? It was like, it's always like, bad, all press is good press, blah, blah, blah.
So to speak, like, most old.
I would almost say to bring home that point, though, KG, is that, like, I feel like that lesson learned was that you don't want that to be involved or be a way that happens in the promotion that you're in. And I can kind of feel like, by the way everybody talks, GCW is very much doesn't fucking pull that shit. And if you come along, you're gonna know, like, hey, we don't do that here, And
I respect that, because it blows my mind, because nowadays, like, so this guy who was working with Samu from the Wild Samoans, he was to Samu what maybe I am to Brett today. You know what I mean? In terms of someone who helps him or works with him or is part of the team. And then it's like, in the same situation, under no circumstances, never in a million years would I ever do what that person did.
Yeah.
If I thought Brett made a bad decision, or if that ref's like a meth addict or whatever, like, hey, Brett, you know what I'm saying? Maybe we should not use this guy. But the idea that someone did that, someone who like smiled to my face, shook my hand, whatever, made up a thing and made up a lie to make me seem unprofessional. But in the end, who looked bad? Him.
Yeah.
Who still got to work with, that was my first time working with the Samoan family, and then the Samoan dynasty, I should say. And then it was years later that I got to work with Rikishi at Knox Pro in LA.
Sick.
Rikishi is the one who gave me the OG name. because he's like, oh, you a true OG Oos. Like that's your name now. You're OG Kevin Gil.
Right.
And I'm like, dude, a fucking triple OG member of the Samoan bloodline and the Samoan dynasty just made me OG Kevin Gil. Like, you know what I'm saying? So whenever people are like, oh, you try to call yourself OG, like, yo, go please question my brother Rikishi about it. You know what I mean? Please call his credibility as a fighting on the streets of South San Francisco into
I feel like we got your full origin story there.
This is a
Right?
flawless idea. That was so
I squeezed
interesting.
some in at the end.
Yeah.
And I managed to tell it without telling any of the video game, backyard wrestling video game or music stuff.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that we have openings
You'll be
to
back.
part 2
You'll
and
get
part
to. We'll
3,
be back.
part 4. It'll be a special premium live event on the Comedians of Podcast metaverse.
Comedians. I can't believe you just said
Comedians
Comedians
podcast is a running joke
Oh,
on this
my bad.
podcast. No, it's a running joke on the podcast. When we're not talking about wrestling, we call it the Comedians of Podcast. So actually, what you said made perfect sense. You almost looked like
I can't wait to tell Newman
king.
that.
You
Oh
look
my
like
God.
a fucking
The whole thing is Newman
cow
said that
fanboy
once.
there. That was great.
Super
Well, let's
excited.
leave
A
it.
only a true OG would know that, okay?
Guys.
And the fact that you said that just
That
makes
was
it so
amazing.
much
I
better.
have to pee, so but leave it on this. But let's just leave it on. Let's go back to marking out for one last second.
Yeah.
to end it, okay. Because you brought up Rikishi, and I've
Yeah.
been thinking about Rikishi lately, and I
Sure.
think it's another wrestler who I didn't appreciate, and now when I think back, I'm like, he was great. I'm like,
Yeah.
Rikishi was fucking great. Now,
I
he
liked him in all his incarnations, even when he was making a difference Fatu.
had- yeah,
I got to see Make a Difference Fatu at Madison Square Garden.
I think I didn't see how he fit in with like the Rocks and Stone Colds like when I was a kid, you know? And now I'm looking back and you're like, you had like a huge Samoan guy like that who like had like, you know, I mean, maybe we can argue the ass stuff, blah, blah, blah. You know, maybe we didn't necessarily need it, but it got over.
Sports entertainment.
Right.
You can't get enough ass. Kids love ass. Look at Bussy. Where would Bussy be without ass?
He
They just be ussy.
yeah.
Yeah, they'd be Ussy.
Because Rikishi got the strap, right?
I don't think he got the world title. He had several titles, and obviously,
Such
he had
mark.
like almost like so many different runs. Even then, as Rikishi, like there was heel Rikishi, there was like comedy tag team Rikishi, so to speak. You know what I mean? And then you had all the earlier incarnations. But go back to the Samoan SWAT team, man. Look at the Samoan SWAT team with Paul Heyman. You know what I mean? Like that shit. That's fucking Rikishi as well. You know what I mean? That's Rikishi and Samu. The same dude that gave me that opportunity, and someone I'm still Facebook friends with to this day.
Wait.
But I have big respect for the Samoan dynasty and bloodline, and the fact that those guys even know who I am. Never mind, gave me opportunities, gave me my name, etc.
Yeah.
And shout out to all of them, Count Black Pearl and honorary Samoan Gangrel as well, because to me he's also part of the Samoan family.
Love that.
Wow. Rikishi never won the WWE championship, but sometimes in my mind I imagined him holding it.
Did he get the IC?
Maybe he held it for The Rock.
He's an American
He did it.
professional wrestler.
He did
Where
it
he
for
was
The
a
Rock.
one-time IC champ, two-time tag champ, and one-time. Yeah. Wow. You
When
know
did
what?
he have the IC? Who did he beat and who beat him?
I have to look it up, but I thought that he became the champion. I don't know why in my brain, but you know, whatever.
He went right up to that spot with the Rock car hit, the car angle.
Yeah,
I
the
believe
car
with the
angle,
Rock.
and then he fell off the cell. Like
Yeah.
he was main eventing, you know.
And he could move. A big guy who could move like that, man. Holy fuck.
Yeah, he had the heel turn where he hit right. He hit him with the car. Oh, he hit the Rock with the car. But where is the IC title? I don't know. Whatever. I don't need to look this up now. But
All right,
I'll
just
tell you
if
that-
someone could text me later, I want to know who did
Here.
Rikishi beat.
He was repacked. He was managed. He unsuccessfully challenged Rock for the IC title at WrestleMania 13.
Okay.
That's when he was the Sultan, though.
Oh wow. Managed by
After
the
winning the
Iron-
IC title, here we go. Oh, sorry. He beat Chris Benoit in.
Okay, no wonder we don't know about it.
Yeah, in June
Wow, Rikishi beat
22nd.
Chris Benoit. I want to watch that match.
Yeah, June 22nd, 2000 on a SmackDown. He beat Chris Benoit for the IC title.
Wow. And then who did he drop it to? Oh, probably doesn't. Or
I think that I think he lost it to Kurt Angle. Say here, I think he had
Damn.
a shoulder injury, but wasn't Kurt Angle already a main eventer?
One of my favorite things ever, and it's a small sprinkle in the footnotes of wrestling.
Yeah.
I used to love when Chris Jericho would call Rikishi Rakasiki. That's like one of the best little like lost calls of all time. And just the name Rakasiki on its own to me is just so classic.
Anyway, there's so much shit I can get back to. Like, there's so much here, but why do I remember him holding the title? But I guess I can't. Anyway, whatever.
He might have physically held it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like to pick it up and tower over the Rock. But
yeah,
then
well,
thinking when the Rock
he had
came back from that
title
injury,
shots. You know.
Yeah, and when the Rock came back from the car storyline, he probably didn't have the belt at that moment because he just came back.
Yeah. Anyway, let's get out of here, Kevin. Because I got to pee so bad, and also we'll never stop. I have to put a hard stop
I know.
on it. But that's
Cut this into multiple episodes.
No. This is going out for the fans deserve this great. This is a great fucking conversation. But Kevin, you're fucking awesome. We went into in depth about how great you are. You can watch Kevin on Game Changer Wrestling. Plug your socials and stuff so people can get you.
Yeah. Please check me out. Give me a follow on Twitter at OG Kevin Gil. Same as Instagram, OG Kevin Gil. And you can find me on Facebook. I'm pretty active on there as well. I have a KG Kevin Gil like page and just my regular Kevin Gil Facebook page, which is like de facto promotional page. And shout out to the homies at Real Kind Meds. You could follow at Real Kind Meds 4321 on Twitter for all sorts of reasons to be discovered later.
Yeah.
Want to shout out to Snack Season. Snack Season sauces on Twitter and Instagram have just released my What Up Though Buffalo spice, like a gourmet, a boutique hot sauce inspired by the greatest hot sauce flavor in all time, buffalo sauce, and a tip of the cap to great Buffalonians like and adjacent areas like Andy Williams and Pepper Parks, aka the Butcher and the Blade, Danny Garcia, Kevin Blackwood, Puff, all the Buffalo homies. What Up Though Buffalo indeed. And then I do commentary for Middle Kingdom Wrestling over in China, and they did a really cool tour sponsored by the U.S. State Department, and I got to call this special like World Peace Wrestling match, where it's a Chinese competitor and an American competitor on each team having a friendship battle.
Oh shit!
And the fact that this was funded by the U.S. State Department, I think, makes me like. I mean, it's got to be some sort of a record. Like, who else called Joey Janela's Spring Break and got paid from the State Department or whatever to call?
That's insane.
But check that shit out. Check out the homies from the Underground Wrestling Alliance. I'll send you the link to it. It's on YouTube.
Hell yeah.
Sick. Shout out to the homies, the Underground Wrestling Alliance in San Jose, California. And I have a website called dignifiedbastard.com where I sell all kinds of odds and ends. My new t-shirt just sold out, but I'm going to be restocking some stuff on there soon. And there's some other just real odds and ends on there. So peep through it if you feel it. And thanks for the love and support. Much love, of course, to the comedians of wrestling podcast, not to be confused with the comedians of podcast wrestling. That is my evil competitor show that I'm going to launch on my own to steal your audience. Yeah. Top da. And I'm going to have the belt. I'm going to have the belt and everything.
I need you to do something for me. I need you to get in Brett's ear, tell him I want Sean Ross Sapp for in a match for the count
shit.
All right. I'm like, I saw his performance at Spring Break 2 in the clusterfuck. Very underwhelming. And honestly,
are you going to give him a live mic? And are you going to have Denise Salcedo in your corner?
I don't. Whatever they want to do. I know she hit him with a low blow, but you never know. I actually would rather have Dan in my corner. I mean, if we're going to show up as Cal. We're gonna.
We'll unify as Cal.
I'm just saying.
Unify.
Don't make us come to a GCW show and demand a match.
Sure.
Right? Let's get this in the works, because
better
you don't want Cal,
better than I
you
put
don't want,
the word. Yeah, better than I put
you don't
the
want
word
the outsiders. You don't want the outsiders,
over.
the cowsiders coming through and fucking start taking over the show.
You know who I am, but you don't know why I'm here.
Wow, incredible.
Rest in peace to the great Scott Hall. I have a great Scott Hall story. I'll tell you next time.
Save it. We have to save it. We need to save it next time.
I'll summarize just so you know what to ask me about next time. The story is called Again.
Oh, we're teasing it. I like that we're
Yeah.
teasing
Hey,
something.
yo.
That's
Put it out there.
beautiful.
This way, hey, what's up with the again story?
Yeah, I love it. Sweet. So check out all Kevin's stuff and us, patreon.com/comedians wrestling. You know that.
Oh, patreon.com/game changer wrestling too. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Be a patron of Game Changer Wrestling. And then the last thing is if you are in Los Angeles on 420 and you want to check out Comedy Pole Show, I'm doing a new comedy show that I'm starting with Christina, where it's we got like high level acrobatic pole acts and comedians here at the Virgil. Should be pretty fucking fun. And that's on April 20th. Pick up chicken.
Former Cal champion Iffy Nawadaway on the show.
Yeah,
right?
if he's doing stand up on the show, Adam Conover on the show. Who else is on the show? Atsuko.
Any chance of
Johnny
Johnny Drip
Maybe,
doing his magic on the parallel bars or whatever?
Yeah, we might get him up. We should get him up to do it. I was like, seeing some of these people could do. Christina was like showing me. I'm like, oh shit, you know what I mean? It's gonna be very fucking fun.
Everybody's gonna be really high, literally.
Yeah.
And figuratively.
Yeah, both
Higher
ways.
than Rob Van Dam on a commercial airline.
Yeah. All right, dudes. Everybody. Kevin, you're the best. Tullo, you're the best. I guess I'm the best. I don't know.
Yeah.
Everybody,
You're the
hey.
best.
Everybody, keep watching wrestling. Kisses.
Eat
Cheers
my
up.
ass, yeah.
Eat my fucking ass.